Oh my God. We're back. Thank God. Another episode of what is it? Video games, movies, TV?
Yeah.
Well, it's gotta be Variety Viso. That's what it's gotta be. What else could it be? Well, what are you guys saying? Yeah, the entire time.
I was saying yeah.
He was saying yeah.
I thought you were looking for a response.
No.
It is.
I'm talking to the, I don't know, maybe 5 listeners that might start off listening to this. Well, who
Hell
knows?
yeah.
I mean, we're talking about a bigger movie this time. It's not on
Exactly.
Netflix. It's actually released in theaters. And we also got another interesting topic. You know, a whole channel bases its whole thing on it with making lists. But before we get to that, we'll give you a little preview of the show for tonight. Well, today, or now, I should say. And, of course, next week as well. But let's start things off right with an introduction. I'm Joe Viso from Variety Viso, where we review movies, television, and video games. We also give news on those things as well. But with me, I have 2 lovely gentlemen. I have one good co-host, Matthew Lundeen.
Hi. I'm just good. Just good co-host.
And just the other good co-host, Chris
Sitting-
Duffy.
Yeah, sitting really close to Matt.
Yes.
Because we have 2 mics total for 3 people right now.
As I said, if any of you saw my description on SoundCloud, YouTube, or on Facebook when I shared this, or on Twitter, we had some audio issues last week, and I was like, don't worry, the next review will be way better. And then somebody broke a mic in the studio that we record. So,
Well, was it broken, or did they just use it to replace one of the other broken mics in the other studio?
that's a good question, but I'm not going to find that out.
Either way, it has put us in a precarious spot.
Yeah,
and
it's
now,
not a great situation.
No, it is not. So if the audio, once again, isn't the best, I'm sorry. One day it will be fine. I swear to God, on my life, I will make this audio fine one day. Hopefully today will be fine. I mean, we tested it out earlier. It sounds pretty good. I'm not too loud this time, thank God, so I won't make your ears bleed if you're listening to headphones. Matthew and Chris sound fine, even though they're on one mic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know that's just life sometimes.
We're just living in
Sometimes
like a barbershop quartet. Like,
Exactly.
Sharing one
Yes.
mic.
yeah, but, that's just life sometimes. Sometimes, life some trouble just knocks
Sometimes
on
you just gotta share a mic.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
sometimes trouble just knocks on the door.
And we'll get there eventually, but I just want to ask you guys, like, how was you guys this week? You guys had a good week?
It was good. I didn't get a lot of time to play a lot of games or watch a lot of stuff because of midterms and stuff like that.
I
But-
actually got to finish a season of a TV show that I might ask you guys to watch, and we're
Okay.
going to review it on here.
Ooh.
30-minute episodes, only 8 episodes, and I think you guys would like it a lot. I think it will
Okay.
provide great discussion. It's on Netflix. It's something good from Netflix this time, though.
It's awesome.
I do remember now. I've been kind of on this mission to finish a lot of the games that I still had not finished in preparation of all the games I'm inevitably going to buy. And so I finished Spider-Man like last week, 2 weeks ago,
Ooh.
and then just this past weekend I finished God of War finally.
Well, you finished probably the best PS4 games that came out this year.
Yes.
It's
And
like the golden age of PS4 right now.
yes, it is. And oh my goodness, were there some incredible moments. Like going back to God of War, I was like, oh man, I wonder. Sometimes you go back to a game you haven't played in a while, and there's a little bit of an odd transition back into play, and you have to like, oh, how do you do these mechanics? I went into it. I was just like, I'm not going to worry too much about side stuff. I'm just going to go through and finish this story. And oh my goodness, like every like big boss fight, like audio, visual components, direction. Fight choreography. It was incredible.
Chris, how about you, man? How's your week been?
Yeah, so my week's been all right. A lot of school stuff, a lot of public affairs stuff at the radio station as usual. A lot more than usual, I should say. But one particular thing related to Variety Viso is that I recently replayed through Red Dead Redemption, and I finished it just a few days ago.
Nice.
Which is a very emotional and a very huge narrative-driven story game, but it's still action-packed. And it is my favorite game of all time. In preparation for Red Dead 2, which I pre-ordered the Ultimate Edition for.
It's in my top 5.
Oh yeah.
But if you're wondering as well, yes, Red Dead 2. It's not next week, obviously, because it ain't going to be out by then. But around November, I want to give us some good time to play it before we get into it, because obviously we're not getting review copies, unfortunately. Red Dead 2 will be probably our first video game review that we do. But tonight, we got a film review.
Yes, we do.
And we also got, I decided to have a little fun, to get, people are probably wondering, what's your guys' radar on films? Like, what films do you like? Because you talked about 2 movies, and, you guys thought it was either okay or really bad. And, with this review, we'll get to that later. But I wanted to have a topic where it's like, you can see what movies we actually like, and then the movies that we actually think are some of the worst that we've seen this year. We're going to give a top 3, bottom 3 favorite films of the summer. Matthew and I were crazy enough to go see enough movies this summer. Chris, unfortunately, did
haven't
not.
gotten out that much.
We're going to change that as the show goes on. Don't you worry.
That's
but
nice.
he's going
That's
to
good to hear.
basically give a top 3, bottom 3 of his favorite movies of the year that he's seen. Some of these might show up again when we do our top 10, bottom 10 of the year.
I'm actually pretty happy because the top 3, bottom 3 I picked are actually close to summer. So I would qualify all of these as blockbusters, I'd say. Or one of them's not really a blockbuster, but it's still a summer movie.
Yeah.
So
You guys got homework tonight or anything?
Just gotta.
Oh, no! I'm sorry, Matthew. We gotta get to what's at hand here. We gotta get to. All right, before we get a copyright strike, let me just pause that.
There was no planning on that, audience.
I have any homework tonight? Joe, what are you doing, right?
I was about to genuinely respond to that inquiry.
No,
I assumed that Joe was thinking like, you know what, we've already been here for a while. We started a bit late. Maybe this. Who knows? We might have a lot of fun. Might go a bit later than usual.
No. Let's get to the topic on hand. Yes,
Christ.
we saw it. We saw the movie that the Lady Gaga fans tried preventing you from seeing. We saw the movie that the comic book fans said, ignore them fans. This is one of the best movies this year. It is fantastic. It's up there with Infinity War. It's up there with Deadpool. It's up there with...
How dare those fans of Lady Gaga try to get us to watch a good movie?
Yeah,
how dare they?
they? Which I will be seeing, and I might do a solo review on that.
Venom
I don't know.
fans are delusional.
But we did see Venom. We did. The Venom movie. Oh my God! Have you guys ever heard about the production hell this thing went through?
No, do tell.
This thing has been in development for the longest time. Ever since Spider-Man 3 ended, this was supposed to be something that was going to be made. I don't know if it was going to be made with Topher Grace, but this was always something in mind. And then they rebooted the films with Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man and Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy. And as you remember, there was supposed to be a whole universe built around that.
Yes, there was.
There was going to be a Spider-Gwen movie. There was going to be a Sinister Six movie. And from there, they were going to have a Venom movie. And this thing was scrapped, of course, when Sony eventually not entirely scrapped, but they basically had to do a whole revision of it when Sony decided, okay, we messed up. Let's give this boy back to his home and see how they handle him. We'll just take whatever money you guys get from the film, and you guys can take merchandise money. And then Homecoming came out and it proved everything that Sony should be doing, which is giving any Spider-Man stuff back to Marvel. But you know what? Sony wasn't out of the game just yet. Instead, they were like, we got 2 movies that we're going to do this year. We're going to release Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. We're going to bring Miles Morales on the big screen in an animated way, in a cool animated way. I mean, this film is looking amazing, but gotta get that live action. Gotta get that live action universe going. Everybody else has got a universe going. So let's try a villain verse without Spider-Man. And to kick things off, we have their first film, and it's not reported that this will be a universe. This did get reported that it has 3 sequels already lined up and confirmed.
3 sequels?
2 sequels.
Okay.
I'm sorry. It's going to be 3 movies.
I was gonna say
That's 3 too many.
No.
Yeah.
But if you've been paying attention to news recently with Sony, there is a Morbius movie, the Spider-Man vampire villain, and a Kraven movie as well, who is Kraven the Hunter, who hunts dangerous creatures on Earth, and considers Spider-Man to be one of them. Which I don't know how you're gonna do that when Spider-Man doesn't exist.
He'll probably try to hunt down Venom. It'll probably be like a thing
You know
where
what?
it's like
Yeah.
Eddie Brock is like the.
That's a really cool interpretation.
Yeah, it's like I can't wait for them to screw it up.
No, Matthew, come on, man. But we're gonna get into this review, Venom. I'm gonna give a quick plot synopsis, real quick, basically of what this movie is. Eddie Brock, they actually kept that character in. Luckily, they actually got him still. He is a journalist who has a very big ego. He is like this hardcore journalist, gets to the facts, has dug up a lot of conspiracies on companies, public figures, whatever it may be. He's on the internet. He has his own show or anything.
As told through the brilliant intro graphic, the
super cut of all
the super cut,
the exposition cut, basically.
The YouTube channel trailer.
It's a show reel, if anything, for any company.
Yeah, basically it's like, hey, you want to hire Eddie Brock? Here you go. Here's footage. He basically gets tips from. He doesn't get tips actually. He gets an email one night on his girlfriend's laptop. He hacks into it and sees that this company that is called the Life Foundation is doing some experiments. And Carlton Drake, who is like the CEO of the company, played by Riz Ahmed, and Eddie Brock's played by Tom Hardy. I should probably say that. So Eddie Brock is on his fiance's laptop, who's Michelle Williams. Ann is her name, and he sees this email about how like they're doing experiments and everything, and to keep everything on the down low. And rather than like going to his girlfriend and asking things, he decides, you know what, I have an interview lined up with Carlton Drake. I'm gonna bring this up during that interview. And he brings it up during the interview, and unfortunately, he gets fired. His fiance gets fired because they associate that the reason he found this information was through her. So fiance dumps him. Eddie's doesn't have a fiance anymore. He's dumped. Gets fired from his job. Cut to 6 months later. He's drunk, loser, lives in a crappy apartment and everything. And he gets a tip one night from Jenny Slate's character, Dr. Dora Skirth, who says that, look, I'm so sorry.
By the way.
But yeah, we looked at each other because we thought that her last name was Girth.
We're like, that's not her name.
Dr. Girth.
That will be her name in the porn parody.
Yeah. For me, that is her name. Like, I won't acknowledge that it's Skirth.
Speaking of girth, can we talk about? Never mind.
Let me finish this up.
I don't know where that's going.
Let me finish this up real quick. But Jenny Slate, basically, Dr. Dora basically gives him like a little tip, like, look, you were right about Carlton Drake. He's a madman. You need to get this exposed. So she breaks him into the facility one night. He sees this one homeless person, tries to get some footage of her, and the homeless person attacks her, and something gets inside Eddie. He goes back home. He's freaking out. He starts hearing voices in his head, and he's just like, what is happening to me? And it's not until Carlton Drake sends like some security teams after him that is revealed that Eddie has this symbiote inside of him, this parasite known as Venom, and the two form a friendship basically to try and stop Carlton Drake from destroying the world. Now, I'm going to get into something about that plot later that I have a big issue with this movie, especially with all the promoting it's been doing. But yes, that's basically the rundown. Venom is a parasite that goes onto Tom Hardy, and they have to try and survive together while being hunted down and prevent Carlton Drake from doing whatever sinister plans he has. Sounds like the movie we saw, right?
It does sound. You explained it. Sorry, we
were kind of messing around
because there's a certain point. This isn't a spoiler. It shouldn't be, but at some point there is sort of a female symbiote, and so I wrote down my notes: Femme Venom. And then thick, and that's what I was trying to transition to with the girth comment.
Yeah,
but let's start off on a good note here. All right.
Yes.
I'll start off with the positive. The biggest positive I could say. I really like the design of Venom. I think it's a cool design. I thought Spider-Man 3's design was fine as well. Yes. I know a lot of people have been crapping on that because of the way he looks in this movie, but I always thought that. No, the Spider-Man 3 design looked fine. It's just that he wasn't in the film enough because a lot of those villains were crowbarred into one movie.
There's not a lot of time you could dedicate to designing one villain when you have to design like 3 or 4. I can't remember how many.
Well, the biggest problem with that is that they didn't have enough shots of just Venom, of just Eddie Brock talking through Venom. They kept peeling back the face to show Topher Grace's dumb face with his
which
weird
they don't do in
teeth.
this movie. Venom gets Venom. I will say, if you love seeing that tongue, you love seeing them teeth, you're gonna see plenty of that on screen. Oh, yeah. This one is like the big, huge, jacked version from the animated series in the '90s of Spider-Man. Oh, I mostly compare it to that, or if you played the Ultimate Spider-Man game or read the comics, it's more like that design as well. In fact, it doesn't even have the spider symbol.
I always, whenever people bring up the animated series in Venom, I always think of that one clip where Spider-Man has the Venom symbiote, and he's chasing Shocker of all people. And he, like most of the series, Spider-Man is pretty mellow with his voice acting. Like, he probably underacts.
Hold on, I gotta play that.
But this one scene, he's just, Shocker, I'll chase you to the ends of the earth. It's super funny and super great. Like off kilter for Spider-Man, but even in this context,
I got it right here. Hold on.
Invincible! Get back here, Shocker! Shocker! You can't escape me! I'll chase you to the ends of the earth!
Oh, I kind of love that.
No, that is like good cheese.
That is that is
the one
that's gourmet I have ever seen.
That's some like.
I mean, that's what the '90s series was kind of known for later on, as like, we grew up and we look back on it as like, oh, this was really cheesy. Like, there's even one where it's like Eddie Brock's like working out And he's like super jacked while doing bench presses. He's got photos of Peter Parker hanging around, and he's like, "I'm gonna get that Peter Parker one day, don't you worry."
So how do you go from that to where like the main question for a lot of people lies? Where do you go without Spider-Man? How do you do a Venom movie where it hinges on the character's main motivation throughout most of the comics and the television series that it's Peter Parker? But where do you go now?
It's hard to say where they went now, because looking at this movie, it's like you're trying to do this whole thing, and the whole thing about the symbiote is that it shares a hatred with Eddie Brock, which is why Venom was originally a villain, and it shared this hatred of Spider-Man and Peter Parker. The symbiote knew Peter Parker was Spider-Man because it attached himself onto Peter Parker. But when Peter Parker was like, "This thing's making me crazy and chaotic," and and he took the symbiote off and got rid of it, it attached itself to Eddie Brock because Eddie Brock got fired from the Daily Bugle because Peter Parker like exposed him for like doing some scandal or whatever, like he does in this film.
There's kind of a hint at it. They mentioned the Daily Bugle once at the very beginning, and like because the main bulk of the story takes place in Los Angeles instead of
San Francisco.
San Francisco, excuse me, instead of New York. So they do mention the Daily Bugle by name. Yeah. And I think in the credits, the astronaut at the beginning is credited as James Jonah Jameson II.
Yes, it's his son. Yeah, that was revealed over the weekend when like a bunch of comicbook.com articles were coming out that there's a Jameson character.
So there's clearly like a tie-in to Spider-Man, but like not a huge one.
Yeah.
Right.
And the thing is that if you're a big fan of Venom, I'm not, but I know a lot of its history because of the 90s cartoon. Yeah. There are some, like he gets fired from his company, which leads to him getting the symbiote and everything. I mean, there's little ties to what you know as Venom, but here they're trying to do their own thing with the character, which you can totally do. And did they do a good job? We'll get to that in a bit. I want to start off with some other positives first before we get there. I will say this. I liked the Eddie Brock and Venom relationship for the most part. Yeah. I thought some of the comedy works, but I would say most of it didn't. But I would say Eddie Brock and Venom, who he does both voices. He did the voice for Venom, and
I didn't know that originally.
You didn't know that?
No, that's pretty cool.
I think
did a great performance
as a dual performance, he did a solid job.
Yeah. No, I definitely I agree there. That's a heavy positive for me, is that there's definitely comedic moments, intentionally comedic. Some of them land, some of them don't, but I do appreciate the ones that do land, because it kind of took me aback. I won't say why, that I've genuinely found myself laughing with the movie. And there's like two fight scenes, one closer to the beginning and one with just Venom fighting off a horde of people. They're two actually really cool fight scenes and well choreographed.
The SWAT team ambush, which they've been promoting it like crazy by releasing clips of it, is actually a really cool action scene.
Yes.
I like the way it's shot. I thought it could have been shot a little bit better. I would have loved to see that scene from the SWAT team's perspective, because that's how the scene started, but then it focused more on like what's happening to Venom from his perspective. Yeah. But I mean, you see how menacing this dude can be just against just normal humans. A whole like army of SWAT basically trying to ambush him, and they get annihilated.
Yeah, with the exception of like that one Wilhelm scream in that scene, I'd say that was like one of my favorite
obvious Wilhelm
scream. Yeah, but it was one of my favorite parts of the film. That and like there's the antagonist symbiote of the film, which sort of
we'll get to in a bit.
Just kind of there for the first part of the film, but it's kind of going from like host to host, and there's a scene of like them just killing a bunch of people, and it was actually pretty good. And because I was worried like
on a PG-13 level,
with this film being PG-13, I was like, how are they going to do this? They did it pretty well in terms of the way
brutal.
In terms of the way they shot it. It was still brutal without being outright just like censored. It's not like
without there being a lot of carnage.
Yeah. It's not like where they have to really
shut up with them puns.
Yeah. It's not like any of the X-Men films where they have to like really kind of find a way to make have Wolverine be Wolverine, but PG-13.
Yeah.
But look, I'm just gonna ask you guys this. You think that's enough talking about the good of this movie?
Yeah.
Well, so hold on. I wanna because I was talking.
If you got anything to add, go ahead.
Because I'll just go off on my own little tangent for right now. It's because I was talking to my friend Michael, who said he messaged this Facebook group because I'd posted about my thoughts of the film on Facebook pretty briefly, but it summed up my thoughts. And so my friend messaged me and said that he actually liked it, or he was like, I don't think it's like it's a great film, but I think that it's better than people are giving it credit for, which I can understand, because if you hear everybody saying that the movie is like, oh, it's garbage, you might be pleasantly surprised by certain things. That's what happened with me in Green Lantern. I went into the movie expecting to hate it, not even because of what people were saying, but just because I myself thought that it looked dumb, and then I'm like now one of like the 3 people in the world who got some enjoyment.
I was gonna say, you're on that island all by yourself.
Yeah, I'm aware. So the thing is, what
the 2 other people that like Green Lantern.
Yeah, with our last review, Next Gen, I kind of tried to look at it from more of a positive perspective, while still being pretty critical because it wasn't a good film.
Yeah.
This one, kind of same deal. I'm going to try to speak to the positive qualities, but I do have jokes that I'd like to say about it. So I'll pepper those in through the discussion. But I also found an interesting article on IGN, which was simply titled "In Defense of Venom," which I might kind of... there's a larger point that I feel like some people who defend this film are trying to make, and I have certain thoughts on how this film might be received years from now. But for now, you two can kind of continue now.
I'll say although I didn't have a lot of positives to say, I do have a lot of negatives to say as well. But most of my negatives, I think, are more out of confusion, because really, when I boil it down, I do not think this was a good movie. I think this was a pretty bad movie.
Yeah.
That being said, I went into it expecting to be bored most of the time and find a decent movie. Instead, I found a movie I thought was pretty low in quality and pretty hilarious, and I got a lot of enjoyment out of it, but for 2 reasons, for better or for worse, and I would say equally, because it's not The Room. It's obviously not like...
Tommy Wiseau bad.
Yeah, no, it's not at that level. Like, because clearly there's like money and a budget, and like there's things behind it, and clearly good acting.
But it's not Fan-4-Stick bad.
No. That's why I say it's confusing, and like I talk positively about Venom sarcastically, because I did get some enjoyment out of it.
One more positive I'll add in, and then we'll get into the beatdown, is that I thought the movie's pacing in the second half was actually fine. When Venom shows up, like, the film actually doesn't slow down, and it doesn't get boring. Like, it kept moving, and I was like, thank God, because if you want to start right now, man, was the first 45 minutes of this boring to me.
Oh, yeah, no, definitely. I would say I'm very glad the rest of the movie was not like the beginning, because that was a boring part, and I thought that would be most of the movie.
The first 40 minutes of this, I'm just warning any of you now who have not seen it, do not expect Venom to be in it. It takes forever for that symbiote to get in Tom Hardy. It took forever.
Literally takes 6 months.
Like, like, you're just sitting there. Like, I turned to Matthew at one point and I went, we're watching Venom, right? We walked into the right movie. There's not another movie with Tom Hardy out right now where he's like a struggling journalist trying to find a breakthrough in his career again.
I have a funny thing to say about that. My main thesis statement for Venom is that I think Tom Hardy thinks he's in a comedy, because on paper you bullet point like the plot points of the first act with like Eddie Brock losing his job, losing his girl, stuff like that. It plays out like a romantic comedy about a struggling guy, and then is subverted because he becomes like a villain at the end or something. Because it plays out as he's a reporter, he's got it all. Then he messes up at his job, then he loses his girl, and then he meets some freaky alien, and he becomes part alien. It sounds like a comedy movie. This doesn't sound like a nitty-gritty, like, gonna hit him with the adrenaline Venom.
The thing is that this movie, once again, tonal problems. Eddie Brock and Venom are in a different movie compared to every other character. Tom Hardy is in a different movie compared to every other actor and actress in this movie.
Yes, that 100% is like my evidence, because at the beginning, Tom Hardy, the way he delivers lines, Tom Hardy's a good actor. He's a very good actor. Mad Max, Dunkirk,
Dark
stuff
Knight
like
Rises.
Dark Knight Rises, fantastic actor. But then you see the first like half hour of Venom, and you're like, what is he doing? Is he like, is he the alien right now? Because he's not talking like a normal person, and I think it's because he thinks he's in a comedy. I think that's what it is.
There are some questionable things about his accent in the film. Like, I don't know if he thinks that's how San Franciscans, whatever they say in Anchorman. I don't know if that's like how they talk, but I don't think it is, because the entire time throughout the movie, I mean, we joked about it on our last podcast, but I mean, he sounds like this the whole time.
Oh, I got parasite.
Like, I know we said
born in the darkness. I was molded by.
I know we said this isn't room quality bad, but damn, man, there are some times he sounds like Tommy Wiseau.
Yeah, no, it's very strange. I think it was a deliberate choice by him. I think
It seems like that, because he is a method actor.
Yeah.
He likes to stay in character on set. He likes to get into character. He likes to try experimental things. And there's a movie called The Drop where he's in Brooklyn. He does a similar accent, and it feels like Tom Hardy was reading about Venom in preparation for this role, and he's like, oh, he's from New York. I can use my New Yorker accent again. Mm-hmm. And then, like, he went on set. He's like, no, we're on San Francisco, so you got to change your accent. And he's just like, I guess this will be my accent for the movie then. Oh, God, I got parasite in me when I talk like that. Jesus.
Yeah, no. It's he is a very different actor, because when you compare him to Michelle Williams or Riz Ahmed, they're definitely on a different level. They're very taking themselves seriously and playing it straight.
It feels like they tried making like Venom in an MCU movie, like a bad MCU movie though.
Yeah.
And then with Michelle Williams and Riz Ahmed, they were like, "Hey, did you guys see Logan? Remember how, like, dark that was? Let's try going for that." But it's Sony at this, so it's like when they try doing it, they end up like, instead of like crafting a masterpiece like 20th Century Fox did, they just hit it with a hammer and went, "All right, that looks good."
Yeah, it's like edgy.
We repaired
and dark.
it.
We got it.
Edgy, as in like the pieces of glass that we just made.
Yeah.
Matthew, you've been kind of quiet, man. Like,
oh no, sorry, I'm just no, I'm enjoying this really. Man, it's strange because I feel like at times the arc between Eddie Brock and Venom,
which is weird that like he addresses himself as Venom.
Yeah,
it's weird.
That's
like,
a question I had. Like, are they both Venom?
Because
is Venom the symbiote, or
it's very weird because the parasites, they come down from the meteor, like it happens in the comic and everything, and it's like the symbiotes name themselves. I don't know if that's something that happens in the comic, but it's just weird hearing them address themselves, because for those of you who don't know, it's not a big spoiler, it's been shown all over the trailers. Riot is in this movie, who is another symbiote that looks very similar to Venom. So of all the ones you could have chosen, I don't know why you chose that one to be the villain for your big climactic fight, which I'll talk about that later. Like, it's weird just hearing like Venom be like, Riot, he's the leader of our people and everything. It's just like, you guys are just globs of like puddles of mud.
Do you have like a society?
Like, how do you operate?
Who's the janitor on your planet?
Well, also, can I just say one thing? I thought that whenever the symbiotes were like the way that they moved when they were like,
trying to find a host.
When they were trying to find a host, I thought that looked really cool because at some points, like the way that it rippled, it didn't move quite like a liquid. It's like you could it was like looking at a cloud and almost being able to make out the shape of something. Or it's like that poster for like Alien Covenant where it was like you couldn't tell what was going on, where it looked like it was just like a mass of people crowd around, but it's like it's clearly like people mutating into aliens and stuff like that. It looked very, very cool.
I agree with you there. It's just the CGI didn't look the best, but its movement, I will agree. Like the way it moved, it was like, no, that's how that's how I imagined it to be whenever I read a comic or I watched the animated series. They got the movement of it, like, attaching it onto people and how it gets inside the people. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of how I imagined it. That's actually pretty spot on.
There are a lot of little detail things that are like, oh, that's neat, I guess, and then you look at the bigger picture of like how characters like, interact, and you're like,
the moment you get like some small detail, the bigger picture comes in and goes, hey, look at here.
And you're like, no, oh wow, you couldn't get that part right. That could have been nice to do.
What I was going to say earlier was that it seems like when it comes to character interaction, the arc between Brock and Venom, I didn't feel like there really was one, or if there was,
there wasn't.
Because the thing that I noticed is that when you have a relationship like this, which on paper it's an interesting idea, you have a normal guy, and then you have this alien which pretty much has no qualms with like killing people.
Who's mainly indifferent, but not.
He wants to eat people.
He's indifferent. He wants to eat people, but it's because he doesn't really have like a reason to care. And Eddie Brock, being someone who
human.
cares,
Yeah.
you know, obviously. So when they merge, there's a lot of potential there. It felt like at some points it was so drawn out or just not plain out non-existent that I couldn't really tell that there was an evolution in their relationship. And then other times there was like a line said that was like bringing them closer together, but it was so sudden. So like you'll have Venom just randomly kind of explaining like an element of his backstory, and not only is it just out of nowhere,
but jarring
because
it still doesn't reveal a lot about him.
It doesn't reveal a lot about him, and it sounds, again, having a voice that cool say something so stupid, it takes me out of it.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing.
When
right
they
there.
reveal why like Venom gets along with Eddie, I busted out laughing at the reasoning. I was like, "Are you kidding me? That's why?"
That is a double-edged sword because one, the delivery was genuinely funny. Like it was delivered as a joke, but there was no substance behind it.
No, there isn't.
Because that's my biggest problem. Venom is kind of just a force of nature. He's not really a character.
He isn't.
And that is like a big gripe. The name of the movie is Venom.
The biggest issue is that I think with that first 40 minutes, where we don't see the symbiote interact. And if you haven't heard, 30 to 40 minutes of this movie was cut.
And that apparently Tom Hardy's favorite.
Tom Hardy's favorite, which apparently had a lot of interacting between Venom and Tom Hardy. Which, if that is true, and this isn't just some like thing to get like people going like, we want the director's cut so we can make higher profit sales, just like DC did with Batman vs Superman and Suicide Squad. If that's true, then it's like, this movie kind of needed that, because this movie would have been a bit better, I think, because this is how it literally is. The arc starts off, Eddie Brock hates Venom. He wants him out of his body. He's freaked out because he wants to murder everything. And then by the end of the film, they're just like, "You're my best friend, you know that, right?
And they don't really have a reason. They don't have a reason.
It just
to like
gets to there. It's like, when did this happen? There was no build up to that.
Yeah, well, so also they kind of get closer because there's one of my favorite parts is a scene where Eddie is being by no fault of his own awkward, and then is in the car with his ex, and Venom is basically telling, because he can read his thoughts,
giving him like a wingman.
He's kind of giving a wingman pep talk, and I was like, this is fun. I like this.
Yeah, it was funny.
I enjoy this. That could have blossomed into something more. That's the moment that I was looking for in the film like this, where it's like, this is where they start to get along.
Yeah, they allude to a lot of character relationship between Eddie and Venom. Like they allude to the fact that like Venom is way more parasitic than Eddie realizes, because they say something about his liver at one point, but that never comes back. That's not really a spoiler because it's not relevant to Eddie.
It's not relevant, and they don't even explain, like, I'm guessing that's just because he was hungry and needed to eat people.
It was mainly a reason just to have this, like, this hero's journey of, like, this character and his friend split up because there's a bad misunderstanding.
Remember what I said last time when we were reviewing Next Gen about, like, the forced tension in the beginning of the third act? This is basically what that was. It was, all right, it's beginning of the third act, so we have to have Eddie be like, oh no, Venom's probably trying to kill me. And so then they were just like arguing, and well, they weren't arguing, but they were kind of separated, and then they come back, and suddenly it's like,
I won't give away a lot about the details behind that, because that technically is a spoiler, but that whole sequence that just all revolves around, they don't really develop a lot of relationship between Eddie and Venom. It just sort of happens, and there's not a whole lot of substance, and it sounds like there could have been substance, but it's more along the lines of like quickly stated. And then let's cut back to our Elon Musk ripoff that is trying to terrorize.
I got a whole section on this. Let's you
want to jump into that?
Let me jump into it. So the antagonist of this film. Now, I want to say for the record, we have reviewed 3 films currently on this show, one of which was a bonus episode, admittedly, when we reviewed Predator.
Which will be coming soon, I swear.
Which will be coming soon. That'll be exciting. And then we had this. And then Next Gen.
I don't know if I could say this, or you could probably edit it out, but a lot of movies seem to have a hate boner for Elon Musk. Because
Steve Jobs, and just like
anybody in the STEM field that's a huge prominent talking point.
Any multi-million-dollar techies and stuff like that.
Sure.
So why is it that every evil scientist in these types of movies is a patently bad scientist? Like, you'd think, I like it when my antagonists are at least competent at their jobs, where it's like, no, we need to do this, that, and the other thing. If he had like a Sherlock type thing where it was basically like he was like, no, do this, this, and this, or like he's clearly, because there's a scene where he's talking to another scientist and it's like start human trials and experiments, and it's like, no, it's too soon, and then he's just like, I don't care because I'm a bad scientist,
and then makes a threat.
Well, why don't you care? Because I want it now.
Yeah, no, it's so strange because it just paints the stereotype, or not the stereotype, the archetype of just a villain that's evil to be evil, really. That's evil to be greedy, which admittedly is a fine archetype if you do it well. It can be done well, but it's boring and it's overused, and they try to dress it up as more of not a satirization, but like a commentary on like greed and corporate America.
And here's another thing too. Riz Ahmed, fantastic actor.
Yes.
He was great in Rogue One for the short time he was on there.
I forgot he was in Rogue One.
He's in this film called Nightcrawler with Jake Gyllenhaal. He's fantastic in that as well. He is the lead in this series called The Night Of on HBO, and he's really good in that as well. And it's just, here's the thing. Any great actor can have a really bad performance when you give him terrible dialogue. And he has some of the worst dialogue, I think, in this movie. It's typical villain cliches. Like, when he opens the back of the truck to reveal the symbiotes in the cases, I was like, don't you say, it's beautiful. And he looks at him and goes, they're beautiful. I'm like, no, come on, man. This guy's better than that.
Are you like trying to be evil? What's your deal, man?
But you don't understand, Chris. You don't understand. He's doing it because of global warming.
Oh my God.
Oh, I forgot that was his reason.
This is the third film that we've reviewed on Variety Viso. Of the 3 films we've reviewed in the premiere of getting...
global warming fits in somewhere.
Global warming. And here's the thing.
Not on a bigger level, just like to give the villain an excuse to be like, oh, he's actually a smart guy. He's actually, like, he's more than one-dimensional.
And to the credit of those other films, this was the only time that it genuinely offended me. Because with Predator, it was just like, oh, well, this is like the first time we've gotten any hint of this guy's motivations. And it was like, oh, yeah.
Kingsman is a great example.
With Samuel Jackson?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. His whole thing was global warming, but it wasn't like at last minute he says that's his reason. Like, that was alluded to the whole time, and it seems like he's someone that genuinely cares.
Hell, you can tie Thanos to this if you want to.
Or even Ultron from Age of Ultron. Like, I know. It's
not like they flat say global warming, but they are saying, hey, we are expediting Earth's resources.
Yes.
So we need to snap and cut these people down a bit.
And Next Gen, that was just randomly added in at the last second.
In Next Gen and in Venom, it's just shoehorned in at the end. I
shoehorned.
forgot that was even a thing in Venom because it literally is one bit of throwaway dialogue. It's just to say our villain kind of needs a reason to be evil, so let's just say it's global warming.
It's just weird that this happened in a row too.
Yeah, exactly. I think that is the birth of a trope there.
Well, I think it's because we have it's just the new hot trend. It's the new hot trend of writers. For writers who are making these types of like larger than life villains. The problem is that like nothing is going to ever beat Thanos and the way he did it,
and Killmonger, I would say,
and
too.
Killmonger, because that was even more. That wasn't even so much global warming as it was tied to racial issues, racial tensions, which made the film so amazing narratively for me.
Yeah, that made Killmonger a very three-dimensional.
Yeah,
exactly, and it was one of the best parts of that film.
The best part is I walked out of Black Panther saying, that's probably their best villain, and right around the corner they have Thanos, and I'm like, dude, you guys knocked it out this year. And then
absolutely.
I forgot Ant-Man and the Wasp came out. I'm like, oh,
never mind.
Those villains ain't gonna matter.
Right.
But going back to Venom, I mean, it's just sad to see a great actor like that be underused. Like, I mean, Michael B. Jordan, fantastic actor, was given great material and had a great motivation, pulled off in a great villain. Thanos, voiced by Josh Brolin, great guy. I don't know the guy personally, but great actor. Gave a fantastic voice to Thanos and did a great job voice acting with him and doing mocap for it. That he made a great villain. Here, Riz Ahmed is just that generic CEO villain. I mean, there's a scene I busted out laughing. It's like they forgot to write like something here. It was just to show like, isn't he? You could tell he's gonna be sinister because of the way he interacts with children and everything. It's just like, look how crazy he is.
Oh my God,
there's a field trip at his like Life Foundation like space center because he's basically like a rip-off NASA as well.
Yeah.
and there's a field trip going on. And he asks the students, like, oh, do any of you have any questions? And these are like fourth graders. And this little girl raises her hand. And everybody, for some reason on the field trip, turns to her in her class and goes, shh, to her. And I'm like, when do children ever do that to someone that raises their hand on a field trip?
Yeah, that's not.
It was like, all right, it's just like whoever wrote this scene doesn't know how humans interact, apparently. And we'll talk about more of that throughout the film's review. But, everybody turns to her and shushes her, and Riz Ahmed goes, no, listen to me. And he points at the little girl. We should never be shushed from asking questions. Questions is where we get ourselves in the world. We are exploring the world together and everything. So I want you to have this pin and remember me by. Also, you can lead the rest of this tour. Goodbye. And it's like, she didn't even get to ask her question. Who wrote this scene? Because it's generic villain dialogue, and then it's just an awkward scene, because then you realize, wait, he didn't even get the question answered.
And really, if he had answered a question and some element of the question tied into his character arc, boom, already you have a functional scene right there.
Yeah.
Considering everything.
But no, we need to like actually get to like a different area. We need to move.
Or even just as simple as then like him walking around the corner, smile fades from his face, and he just takes out another pin from his pocket and just puts it right there on his jacket.
Yeah, that would have been actually...
Again, then you just have more to say, like, oh, this guy's a sociopath and also
that's like,
really cheesy.
That is the part where I'm like, okay, it's clearly supposed to be Elon Musk, because it is a generic evil villain monologue, but it's about topics that relate back to Elon Musk. Is like, you shouldn't silence people, always continue asking questions. And then even like the dismissiveness of like, and now that I'm done making myself look good, I'm gonna go do something worth my time.
I'm gonna leave. Goodbye.
Yeah, there's weed that needs smoking.
Oh, okay. I was like, Riz Ahmed doesn't. Okay, Elon Musk.
Well, he might. I mean, I don't know.
I was just wondering.
I bet he did after this film.
Yeah, after this film, he was like, hold on a minute. I just got done like making bank at HBO. Just give me a minute. But man, another problem with this movie. And we were hinting at it with the actors being apparently in different movies compared to Tom Hardy. But it's just the overall tone and feeling with this movie. This movie, I saw a tweet, and it perfectly encapsulated what this movie felt like. This movie felt like it got shelved, and it fell into a wormhole while it was up on that shelf. And it came out of the wormhole from like the early 2000s superhero movies of like Catwoman, Daredevil, stuff like that. And it landed in 2018, and some Sony executive dusted it off and went, oh, hey, we can use this. And it's just like, it feels like a superhero movie from the early 2000s.
My biggest thing watching this movie is thinking, like, if this got an Evil Dead 2 treatment, where they just basically redid the whole movie and dressed it up as a sequel, that would probably be my favorite movie ever.
Yeah.
Because this is genuinely funny, but not... I shouldn't say genuinely funny. It's funny, but I'm laughing at it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was laughing more at this movie than with it.
Yeah.
That brings me to a good point, because you're talking about this being a film out of time, and I want to now get into kind of my the whole discussion. So there was an article on IGN. It was called "In Defense of Venom." Let's see who wrote this article. This was written. Oh, it doesn't actually say.
We aren't sponsored by IGN, by the way.
We are not sponsored by IGN. I just saw this. I read it, and I was like, this seems interesting. I'll figure out who wrote this.
If you'd like to sponsor us, please contact us.
I want to tie in, because we said about this feels like a superhero movie that doesn't know what to do. At least those felt like they had like a character arc to them. Like there was like kind of a message. But for Eddie Brock, I don't really know what his character arc is.
No, you really don't. And the worst part is this film doesn't even know, even through its promotions. Every poster, every trailer said the world has enough superheroes. But at the end of this movie, Venom and Eddie saved the world.
Yeah.
That really had nothing to do.
Like the attitude of it?
Like they're trying to be like, we're the anti-heroes. Like, no, you're not. You're actually going
straight up save the world.
You're going in a direction that I hate what's happening with Venom. It's that they're trying to make him good in the comics and everything. It's like, because he's such a popular character, that's just like, no, don't do that. Keep him a villain. You guys can make a villain-based movie. We've had plenty of great antagonist main characters that we've sympathized with. Breaking Bad with Walter White. I mean, like, you just look at examples like those.
You can have sympathetic villains.
Warner Brothers is making a Joker solo movie, and just from the footage alone, it looks really good.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just Joaquin Phoenix and everything. I'm just like, if that comes out and it's successful, this film had no excuse on how bad it was. Yes. It has no excuse on why they couldn't just make Venom the typical villain.
Oh yeah, no, because if you could do a standalone Joker movie without Batman, and you knock it out of the park, you kill it with Joaquin Phoenix, then that sets a precedent. That says that you can do a standalone movie. You don't need like the main character. You don't need the main like yin to the yang here, but you do have to make quality, and there still has to be some substance behind it.
Yeah. Matthew, you want to get to a point?
Yes, I think, and this is because I didn't enjoy the film, but I was in.
We don't say.
Yeah, but I want to speak on behalf of some people who did enjoy the film, and because I find that the reasoning genuinely interesting.
Yeah.
I think that we were talking about it being kind of feeling like a movie that came from the era of such films like Catwoman and stuff like that, like bad early 2000s superhero
even
films.
the good ones too, where like there is some feeling that you get like the cheesiness from the Raimi Spider-Man films,
Right.
and like
Yeah.
even the early 2000s X-Men.
Yeah, which some people might look at that and get some enjoyment out of that.
Yeah.
Kind of a blast from the past type of thing. Those types of tropes may not hold up as well today, and that's maybe why a lot of critics didn't like it. Well, the thing is, though, I think there are some people who have said, and I could believe it, that this film could have the potential to be kind of like a cult classic type thing.
I can totally see that with
I
this
can see
movie.
it because this film, we have to remember, this has like an 80% on Rotten Tomatoes on the audience score.
On the audience score, yeah.
Critical score is very low, but audience
like in
score
the
is very.
30s, I think.
But
The,
yeah,
the thing is, and I saw somebody like post about this, and I was like, that's actually very true. When Suicide Squad first came out, it was like this at first, where it's like audiences were saying, no, man, ignore the critics, who cares, and everything. But then over time, even the DC fans I've been noticing, even the DCEU hardcore fans have looked back and went, okay, yeah, that film actually really sucks. And I'm wondering if that's just going to happen over time. Which one of you,
only time will tell.
Yeah, which one of you I think was alluding to at the beginning of this, where like over time we wonder how people are gonna look back on it. Is it gonna become the cult classic movie that Matthew was hinting at, or are people just gonna look back and go, look, at the time we were just really hyped that we got a Venom movie.
There are a lot of people, especially on Reddit, I see try and do these insane mental gymnastics to defend Batman v Superman. But even those people, they look at Suicide Squad and they're like, oh yeah, no, that was pretty crap. So
Yeah.
I think I hope something like that happens to Venom, because I don't want that to be revered as a cult classic, because like this is fun, but not for the right reasons.
Yeah.
because I remember people tweeting about it and people kind of saying. Someone would tweet about it and someone would kind of compare it to like old, like maybe like something like the late 90s, like superhero films, like stuff like Spawn and stuff. Like
that's a good one, yeah.
People would compare it to that, and then some people in the comments below would be like, well, I mean, I still kind of like that film, looking back at it. So maybe whether it's nostalgia or just this genuine like love for like campy films like that, I think that there are some people. And again,
they have
so
good campy films too.
Yeah.
Because
There-
Rocky Horror, I love.
And so someone this article by IGN, which I've been referencing, and I actually want to comment on besides just saying, oh yeah, it exists. There was a
I was gonna say, if you want, would you consider Ant-Man a campy film?
first one, because I'm
The
listening.
first
to
one,
the
the
one
first
is
one.
camp.
I could consider.
There's
that.
a big reason for that, though. It's because it was originally going to be written and directed by Edgar Wright.
Yeah.
And he's not like a campy guy, but he is a very comedic guy, and he likes to make his heroes, I guess, like not social outcasts, but definitely like on the other side of the rest of the people in the film. Not smarter in any way, but they stand out. And definitely his style is unique, so I think it can be perceived as campy. And with like the trade-off of directors, I think his style came more off as campy because of that, because they kept essential writing from Edgar Wright, but the writing credit went to someone else, and he just took producer credit for the rest of the film. So I'd say there's like an element of campiness to it, but I think it's because it was more of a creative misstep, if
Okay, well,
anything.
there's even good films out there. The Muppet movies, I would say. Hairspray. I mean, like
Oh,
those
yeah, no.
movies. Like hell, if you want, you can look back at maybe even Spider-Man 1 and say it's campy, just because some of the
I,
tone of it.
I would
Absolutely.
definitely say that's campy, borderline
You can
cheesy.
you can make a campy film and you can still make it good.
Yes.
It's like, and it's just sad to see like this. And here's the thing: I didn't hate this movie. I thought it was just. I think it's bad, but it's like everything about it was either just average to bad at worst. Like I didn't walk out like furious. It was like I saw the trailers and I was unimpressed by them. I went in and it's exactly what I saw in those trailers. So it's not like I walked in and it was like hugely disappointed or just like bam, like just caught off guard on how bad it was. It was just like, nah, this is kind of what I was expecting, but it still sucks.
I kind of feel the opposite a little bit. There were parts where like I thought were average, some parts were just hilariously bad, and there were other parts where I thought there could have been potential, and I was frustrated that it didn't go anywhere.
You know what? I can agree to some of that with
Because
certain
especially
scenes. Because the relationship with Eddie and Venom, I felt like could have been.
Eddie and Venom, and there's a midway point in the movie where Eddie first finds out he has his symbiote in him, and he's like fighting these guys in his apartment.
Yeah.
The scene, I think, the way Tom Hardy acts and the way he's throwing punches and reacting to himself being flown across the room, is genuinely funny. But it's because it's the epitome of the movie to me. The soundtrack doesn't match up.
Yeah.
It's this very like intense, like supposed to be. It's Venom's theme. Like we are introducing Venom. The director had like a dissection. He said, "Yeah, we chose this scene, this soundtrack, this track for this scene."
Oh, it was one of those like director breaks down this
yes,
scene.
Yeah, I think it was for Vanity or something.
Yeah.
But he said like we chose this because it's a character revelation, and I thought, well, okay, but for the tone of what your actor is doing and like the rest of the scene, what's going on around him, he's throwing dumbbells at people with his feet, like, and he's not even controlling it. This is totally. I feel like Hip to Be Square can be playing this whole time, and you have a totally different effect and a better effect.
There's even one scene where it's like, because Venom's controlling him the whole time, his entire movements. He grabs one of the bodyguards, pulls him towards him, and Venom forms a fist with Eddie Brock's other hand. And it's like the entire time it's getting formed, Eddie Brock's looking at it, bug-eyed, freaking out. And so is the bodyguard, bug-eyed and freaking out. And they're both looking back at each other like, what's happening? And it's like, this could actually be played up for comedy. And it would have been actually a much better scene. But because you're playing like intense music, it's like, am I supposed to be taking this seriously? Because it looks silly.
Is this supposed to be like, oh, I'm supposed to be like freaking out. I'm supposed to be like jacked right now. I'm supposed to be hyped.
There's a movie I'm going to mention later when we get to our top 3, bottom 3 that did that scene exactly, but it did it way better in the thing that you're talking about. But
I think I know what you're going to talk about.
And I will say some of that choreography was very creative. But we mentioned Rocky Horror Picture Show. So in this defense of Venom thing, which I'm finally going to actually get to quote, we should have a counter of all the times I tried to quote it prior to this. So to quote, and I don't know the author's name, Rafael Guzman of Newsday compared Venom to midnight movie classics like the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And then in quotes said, which would be a positive in my book, but which Guzman meant to be a criticism. So it seems like, there are a lot of people who tend to look back on films like that, passionately. So I feel like there are a lot of people who are liking this film, and they're liking it because they, I don't know, maybe they just attached to the part of it that it was, that was just fun camp. And I can understand that.
Yeah,
I can.
I definitely think it's more of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man crowd. I do not personally like the Sam Raimi movies.
I only like 2. Yeah. I didn't like the first one even as a
2.
kid, and then rewatching it, I still thought it was okay. I love 2. I think 3 is okay as well.
My favorite part of Spider-Man 1 is how Willem Dafoe says, "Spider-Man, I will defeat you." But I don't like the camp in those movies as much. But a lot of people like really latch onto it, and like that is their quintessential.
Because that's what Sam Raimi's known for. They might be just Sam Raimi big fans of Sam Raimi's work.
It works in some movies. I don't feel like it plays well with Spider-Man, but I mean that is a complete not style over substance, but a complete style. A criticism that anybody can have. It's completely subjective.
One thing I like about the second one, I know we're getting away from Venom on this, but I mean it kind of relates, kind of doesn't because Spider-Man's not in it. But I really like what Spider-Man 2 did with it. Kind of took a backseat with the campiness, and it had this whole like 40 minutes where Spider-Man lost his powers and didn't have like his suit or anything, and it was actually like a very like compelling seeing him go through this whole journey of like not wanting to be Spider-Man to eventually going, no, I need to be Spider-Man. There's actually a point for me to be this.
And in some times, like in terms of balancing the comedy and campiness with the seriousness, I think it actually, at some points, did it better than a lot of MCU movies.
Yes.
There's a great video on the concept of bathos in superhero films, comparing a scene in Doctor Strange and a scene from Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
Does that also, on a side note, I've often made the joke when Spider-Man 2 gets brought up that it's a metaphor for erectile dysfunction.
Okay.
All right. I won't ask why, but
I will ask why after this.
Because he couldn't shoot webs anymore.
Oh.
Oh.
Okay. All right.
And just like in Back to the Future, with the mom in Back to the Future, he was attracted to danger. So the danger of almost losing Mary Jane, gave him the excitement to keep that manhood turgid for just a little bit longer.
We're getting way off track here.
Yeah, I don't know where you are.
But yeah, I mean, like, you look back at even those Raimi films, and they at least can find that balance with the campiness and still making something very good, I would say. Like, even though I'm not the biggest fan of 1 and 3, I would say that they're fine for what they are, and 2 I think is excellent. This film just can't find that balance.
No,
it doesn't.
I definitely feel like it doesn't know what it's
And
doing
the director of this
time.
too, let me get his name, but he directed Zombieland.
What?
Yes, he directed Zombieland. I forgot
kidding me?
his name. Ruben I'm gonna pronounce his last name really bad. Fleischer, I think, or Fleischer.
Here, I want to see some of the other stuff he's done.
He directed Zombieland, 30 Minutes or Less, the Jesse Eisenberg movie where he has to deliver that pizza, and then Gangster Squad. Yeah.
Another film that was not critically well received.
Yeah.
I only remember that from the controversy of the movie theater
reshooting.
shooting.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know there was a shooting.
There was a scene in that movie, and you could find the trailers of it where they try to assassinate a character, and they do it by shooting Tommy guns through a theater screen.
Yeah.
That was around the time that Dark Knight.
Yeah, and then Dark Knight Rises had its thing happen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that scene was cut completely.
But I mean, this guy, he hasn't had a hit since Zombieland. 30 Minutes or Less. I actually like it, but it didn't get received well by both audience and critics, mostly because once again. And they just didn't reshoot the movie, but it's based on an actual event where a pizza delivery guy did get a bomb attached to his neck. And in the movie, I mean, they played up for laughs, but in real life, the guy got killed. He died getting with an explosion around his neck.
Yikes.
And then Gangster Squad, you had a lot of reshoots because of what happened, and also just like it really felt like a knockoff Untouchables.
Okay. All right. Yeah, you
Which
mentioned.
is a shame because great talent. In that
It has a fantastic cast.
It's funny that you mentioned the director and compare his work because we also did that for the composer of the movie because I didn't really trash it, but I said that the soundtrack doesn't seem to match with the tone of the film. But the person who made the soundtrack, I don't know his last name, and I'm not going to try and pronounce it, but it's Ludwig, and that's how he's popularly known. I think people just refer to him as Ludwig. He's Childish Gambino's producer. And he did the Black Panther soundtrack. He is a good composer.
He did the Creed soundtrack as well.
Yes.
And it's great in that as well.
He's very good. He produced most of the Awaken My Love album. So it's strange how you compare all of that work and then you compare it to Venom and that character scene where it seems like most of the soundtrack seems forgettable, and I think it's because of that tonal imbalance, that can't be imbalance.
Every composer has this, though. I'm telling you right now, you go and you look at Danny Elfman, great guy, made the Batman theme from the Tim Burton films, fantastic. What is he doing now? What's his most recent work? 50 Shades trilogy.
Was it?
Yes. Hans Zimmer, always used by Nolan, for all of his films, Dunkirk, Dark Knight, even Batman vs. Superman has a fantastic soundtrack. I love it. And Man of Steel as well.
He did
Boss Baby. He had the Boss Baby, yeah.
I remember that. And I actually remembered listening to it, and it's not a bad soundtrack, I'll say. Because
it's not, but I mean, just like, composers get these scores every so often where it's just like, maybe it's just the paycheck. Who knows?
Maybe.
Exactly, yeah.
Who knows? Oh, man. Well, Chris actually, when he saw that before we started recording, left the room.
Oh, no, yeah, because I saw his name, and I'm like, I didn't connect the dots immediately. I'm like, hey, that sounds familiar. And you were like, he did the Black Panther soundtrack. I'm like, now he sounds really familiar. And I'm like, is that Gambino's producer? And he just immediately ran out of the room at that revelation. And Matt is going to recreate it for me right now, or he's just taking a sip of water.
He's taking a sip of water.
But
I mean, I think we're going to start wrapping it up here.
Yeah, I think we've hit the mark.
I mean, it's just disappointing to see. It's disappointing.
Because
when I heard about this, I was like, there is potential here. And I'm really hoping Sony learned from seeing how to make, reintroduce a character or whatnot. Because, I mean, technically, they had to reintroduce a character here.
Yeah.
With Spider-Man Homecoming. I was hoping that somebody would be like, hey, maybe we should call up Kevin Feige, the guy that's been kind of handling the whole ship of the MCU and leading it down whatever the whole 10 years that he's been planning. And it's like, no, apparently they just didn't want to contact Marvel at all with this. And you know what? The most jarring thing about this too is Stan Lee has a cameo in this. And it caught me off guard at first.
And then you're like, oh wait, this is a Marvel movie.
I'm like, I forgot this is a Marvel property. It's just that is not something I should be saying about a Marvel property.
Yes. Yeah, no, it's an unfocused movie, and I genuinely think when you look at it on paper, I think it's trying to be a superhero comedy, but that's just not how it pans out.
Yeah, I mean, this tonal clash is all over the place. Matthew, you've been quiet for most of the review. Is there any last things you want to hit before we get our wrap up and final thoughts?
You know, I said after I got out of the film, I said that I posted on Facebook that Venom is atrocious, and it's mainly just because I didn't think it was that good of a film. I still don't. It may have been also contributed to the fact that same night I walked in. That same night I left a bit too late, so I wasn't able to meet you guys at the period we were going to meet, so we could all drive there together.
There's a lot of effort for not much.
A lot of traffic issues and stress related to that. Got there behind a person who took forever to make a right turn, and then
I have footage of that.
Yeah,
too.
and then got into the lobby, and as we were buying the tickets, I looked up and saw that My Hero Academia 2 Heroes, the multi-million-dollar grossing film, which is very impressive for a limited release film, playing at 7 p.m., just an hour past when I had arrived, and I was just thinking, what could have been. But, no, thinking back to it, I still think it's a bad film, but I'm interested to see how people look back on it years to come, because I think that there is a bizarre nature to the film.
Yeah.
The same bizarre nature that Chris here sort of found some enjoyment out of.
I'm not going to rewatch this movie. It's not my...
And it is bizarre in an understandably likable way for some people. And so that's really what I'm going to say. If you want to kind of rekindle that enjoyment, because I went into it not expecting that type of old-fashioned cheese. I was expecting ideally I went into it expecting I don't think this is going to be a good movie, and then it kind of proved my point. Yeah. I went into it though not ever expecting that level of cheese, and if I had, maybe I would have enjoyed it, because I grew up loving those Sam Raimi Spider-Man films. So Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 2, I love them both. Spider-Man 3 kind of was like an overdose, so I was like, ugh. But man, sometimes those you look back at some of those old '90s superhero films like Blade, and you're just like, oof, that's some good stuff.
It sucks too, because everybody's getting on a Spider-Man high right now. We just had Homecoming came out last year. This year he was in Infinity War. He had his game come out a few weeks before this movie came out,
which could be which could be my favorite version of Spider-Man ever.
That's what I've been hearing a lot of too. And it's just to get another Spider-Man property, only for it to be disappointing compared to everything that we've been getting up to this point, it just hurts. Luckily, we're gonna end the year hopefully with a bang of a property with Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh yeah,
we're gonna. There were two after credit things. I'm gonna
touch on one of them. Don't you worry.
Yeah. One of which was related to Venom and stuff like that, which was very, very funny. And since we're not doing spoilers, I won't say what I thought that scene was gonna be going into it. I was really excited, and I thought I can see the wheels turn, and then I was like, ooh. That's not at all what I thought it was going to be.
I'm glad Carrot Top is finding work.
I am glad that Carrot Top is finding work. And then the second one was literally just a trailer for Into the Spider-Verse.
Yeah, it's a 5-minute clip from Into the Spider-Verse. It's probably the best part of this movie.
And it's not from this movie.
Which is sad.
And the thing is, it's just beautiful. It's beautiful
incredible.
Animation. It's energetic. It's funny. It's everything this film wasn't. And it's in 5 minutes. And you're just like, why couldn't we just watch this?
I will say, as soon as the credits hit, I could hear the instrumental track to Venom by Eminem start up, and I'm like, thank God I can actually hear this in the theater.
And that's another thing I want to bring up. So another thing in the defense of Venom is that there were a lot of people who were the article that I read on IGN. It was talking about how the guy who wrote the article, again, it's really weird they don't say by this person, but it may just be the mobile app. And he was saying, I grew up on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and all this other stuff that where you had rappers making these themes for these movies and these shows. So it's what? I kind of enjoyed that. That's quoting him. I thought it was funny in the wrong ways.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I totally understand when people get excited about that type of stuff and consider it to be a positive.
I will say this is a pretty great bad movie. Like, I had a lot of fun. Not going to rewatch it again. But if you
Yeah.
want a good laugh, definitely you can pop this in.
You
on
guys
rental.
ready? Final thoughts?
Yeah.
I will just quote the article. Also, Venom features an Eminem rap song about the character specially commissioned for this film. This may just be the raving of a nostalgic member of Generation Y, but that is something I definitely miss. As someone raised on the Adams Groove, Turtle Power, and Are You Ready for Freddy, the rap narrative over the closing credits is the most natural thing in the world, and I love when it happens.
I definitely share that opinion, but only because it's jarring to me.
Anyways,
So
to give our final thoughts,
Yes.
I'll start.
Okay.
I mean, like I said, I wasn't surprised on how bad this was. I'm just more disappointed. I wanted this to be good. I hate sitting through a bad movie. It's the worst. And especially with that first 40 minutes, I was like, oh my God, this is going to be one of the worst films this year. Luckily, when it picked up and, Venom showed up, actually, finally, I was like, okay, it's bouncing between average stuff to bad, but it's not as bad as those first 40 minutes.
Yeah.
I was just sitting there the entire time just going, man, the comedy, it's fine in some parts. Other times, it feels like a college humor sketch that involves Eddie Brock's character trying to combat with having this parasite live inside of him.
And eating pizza rolls.
And then other times, the action is amazing. And then, like I said earlier, I was going to get on this. The last action scene in this movie is like watching two giant globs just constantly hitting each other. And the thing is,
what it is.
It's what it is. And also the camera, it's like, this is a CGI fight, you guys. You guys can just put the camera back. Like, you don't have to get up close. Like, you're not really showing like any cool choreography. Anytime it slows down, you can tell what's going on in the fight. But when like the two blobs of Riot and Venom are hitting each other, it is confusing to tell who is who because also it's at night and it just looks messy. It reminded me of like the first Transformers movie when the Autobots and Decepticons ever started fighting. It's just like,
That's
okay, I
definitely-
can't really tell what's going on here. I really can't. And then just Tom Hardy, I thought he was fine in this movie. I thought he was good, and I thought he did a fine job voicing Venom and doing Eddie Brock, even though his voice was really weird. But then everybody else in this movie is in a completely different movie, so it's just there's a tonal clash issue here the entire time. It's just frustrating to watch sometimes because, like Chris said, you see potential and then it's just not used. But I mean, other than that, it's what I expected it to be. So is it a bad movie? Yes, for me it's a D+. Until we got to that stinger, and then there is a line said by a certain somebody referring to another character in Spider-Man, and when you hear it, you'll know who it is. And it took that plus, and it yanked it away, and it's just a normal D now.
It's like you are really banking on this being a franchise.
Yeah, I mean, it was like, ooh, you could have just not shown that to me and not had that terrible line at the end.
Do you want to go first on your?
I think I will. I don't remember what I gave next gen because I'm trying to think.
D+, C-, I think.
D+, C-.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were
right.
more merciful than we were.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm trying to think which of these films I'd rather rewatch. That's the mental math I'm doing in my head. But instead I'll just go with my own. I'll go with my gut on this, and I'll say at first I was gonna say D because I figure it's not a great film. But then I thought about. But then I thought back to Femme Venom and her thick thighs, and I thought, you know what? I'm gonna give this film a D+.
Are you kidding? Those like 3 seconds were the saving grace for the movie.
Yeah, actually, because I thought that was a really cool character design, and if I'm being serious, it's because I am interested in the possibility of this film becoming a cult classic in the future. I think that the fact that it was able to reinvigorate that kind of type of argument, I think gives this film some worth beyond just its narrative qualities.
Right. I'll give you that.
And thick Femme Venom.
My God. All right, so I think I've said it. All I've needed to say. This definitely should have been a comedy, a rom-com that turns into a supervillain movie. That sounds that clash of genres sounds like something Edgar Wright would make. I'm so glad he's doing his own thing right now, though, and not touching this at all. He wouldn't be interested in it, but that's just a little aside. Definitely an unfocused piece of garbage, like a turd in the wind. Yes, there it is.
I was wondering if anyone was going to use it.
I just kind of I thought of it a second before it came out of my mouth, so I'm glad I said it. But yeah, no, definitely something I had fun with. Definitely something I'm not going to watch again. It is not worth my time. Probably not worth your time unless you're watching it for the first time. I don't really care. But if you want a good movie where it's about a guy and he's like possessed and is a killer or whatever, then go watch Upgrade or Evil Dead 2, or there was another movie I had in mind, or Into the Spider-Verse. Just don't watch this one. This is a D- from me. Yeah, it's Venom.
Thank you, Matthew, for
Venom,
showing me that.
Venom.
Matthew just showed me a very precarious picture.
I was trying to find a picture of Venom.
I
from the
really
movie.
don't like. Oh my God, that is Rule 34.
I was about to say you're gonna stumble across something like that.
Oh my God.
But Chris, what was
Yeah. Well, it's covering her bits.
I don't want to look at. God. So what'd you say, Joe?
What was your grade?
D-.
D-. Well, there you have it. I think it's D's all around, right?
Yeah, we have the full spectrum.
Yeah, the full spectrum. D+, D, and then D-.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, sadly to say, people, it wasn't what you probably were looking for. Maybe it was. Maybe you were just hoping this would fail so Marvel can just make it better. I don't know. But there you have it. Venom, not one of our favorites of this year. Hey, let's talk about some of our favorites this year. Particularly the ones over the summer. And some of our worst ones over the summer too. But
yes.
We were just talking about bad stuff. Let's start with the good. So what we're gonna do now?
Real quick.
Originally, this was gonna be our top 5, bottom 5, but because of time constraints, we decided to go with top 3, bottom 3. I'm just gonna give my little honorable mentions, basically. 3 films that one of them everybody's always asking me, I thought you hated this movie because you never talk about it. It's like, no, I love this movie. It was just I thought these movies were better. One for me is Infinity War. I enjoyed Infinity War. Any of my friends listening to this right now, I enjoyed it. I liked it a lot. It's just these other films I liked more. I am sorry. And everybody else in this room is going to totally prove me wrong here. But the other one was Crazy Rich Asians, and the other one was Deadpool 2. Crazy Rich Asians and Deadpool 2 were going to be like 5 or 4. I don't know which one, but those 2 movies I really did like over the summer. And I know it's weird to hear a man say Crazy Rich Asians was better than Infinity War. Well, Crazy Rich Asians made me tear up, and Infinity War made me tear up as well, but not as hard as Crazy Rich Asians. But anyways, I'm going to start off with my favorite 3. We're going to pass it off to Matthew. We'll pass it off to Chris, and then we'll start off with our bottom 3. But to kick things off, number 3 for me this summer was... Oh, yeah. God, that soundtrack is so good.
That's a killer one.
God. Oh, man. Yes, Mission Impossible Fallout is what it is for me. I love this. This was like me and Matthew, and I'll upload this as a bonus episode as well. Me and Matthew to give basically like a preview of what the show would be to like producers for us. We had to make demos. Chris and I did one of Jurassic World. Matthew and I did one of Mission Impossible Fallout. And Matthew and I were debating whether or not this was the best Mission Impossible. I can confirm after seeing it 3 times, it is. I love this movie. This was everything that I was hoping for it to be. It has amazing stunt work. The action is great. And something that me and Matthew touched on, they really do a good job at focusing on Ethan as a character and how much like stuff he's been through and how it plays into his like the whole job that he has to do of saving the world. And like it really focused basically on Ethan a lot more than any of the other Mission Impossible movies did. And I thought I knocked it out of the park, along with what it's known for the series. The amazing stunt work, action, everything else. The soundtrack is killer in this movie. And the supporting cast, man. I mean, Henry Cavill killed it in this movie, man. That fight scene in the bathroom, fantastic. I loved it. If you didn't get a chance to see it over the summer, dude, I highly recommend it. To me, it was my favorite action movie this summer, except for my next one, which is number 2 for me.
As a quadriplegic, it must be frustrating for you, someone who liked to get things done with their hands.
Here's the thing. 4 guys murdered my wife. If I could find these men, I'd do it.
What if I told you I could offer you something that would enable you to walk again? I call it STEM.
I like to call this movie the better Venom, because that's literally what it is.
That's what it is.
Upgrade, if you didn't get a chance to see this, this was like, man, this was not getting the word of mouth I wish it did. It was, it's basically very similar to Venom. This guy becomes a paraplegic and gets this little microchip stem. And it's kind of like set in the future as well, not too far in the future, just near future. And the microchip has an AI built into it that turns out to be a voice in his head. And like whenever he needs its help, it controls his body movements and everything. And the thing is that, my God, this movie did everything Venom was trying to do, but better.
Because it was also R-rated.
Because it was also R-rated too, but also it had a better relationship between the stem and the main character. It was much more focused on what it wanted to be, and it just had amazingly choreographed action scenes like this one where this guy breaks into like one of the dudes that killed his wife's apartment.
I need your permission to operate independently.
Permission granted!
Thank you.
Yeah, I've seen. I remember watching when I saw Deadpool 2 with my friend Colin. A trailer for this came on.
Yeah.
And it was a red band trailer, obviously, because
Deadpool 2, yeah.
Deadpool 2, and it was actually part of it wasn't the full trailer, it was just a kind of a pre-roll thing for like AMC, but it got to the part with like him killing the guy.
Yeah.
And my friend was like, "Oof." Good lord.
Yeah.
So
I mean, like in the action, I mean, just the camera work there, like just the scene where the guy shoots up from the floor. It looks so cool. Yeah. I was like, the choreography is great, and just like his facial reaction to him hurting this dude is totally hilarious up until it gets to like the darkest part of that scene where he kills the guy, and even he's shocked by it. This film to me just did, like I said, everything Venom tried to do, but better. It did it well. It did it excellently. It played dark humor well. It had a great script. It reminded me of like an episode of Black Mirror with a bigger budget. And I thought like
that's cool.
It knocked it out of the park with what it wanted to do.
I wish I saw that movie.
And also, this movie had a very small budget. I think it only had like $10 million, $15 million budget. And it has some of the best CGI this year. I mean, I know it's not like, they're not going like distant planets and everything, but I mean, it has like drones flying around. And there were drones in Venom that looked like absolute crap, but they looked fine in this movie.
Oh man, I completely forgot to mention the chase scene when we were reviewing Venom. But whatever, because
that's in the past.
Forgettable.
It's forgettable. But I will say one thing that drew me to upgrade from the trailers, and sadly I did not see it. But it gave me something in live action that I was hoping for from the live action Ghost in the Shell that I had only gotten in Ghost in the Shell Standalone Complex, which is a great series. Everybody should go watch it.
I wish Toonami was still airing it.
They occasionally do sometimes. They'll put it back on eventually.
Anyway.
But a person loading their cyborg arm with shotgun shells and firing.
Oh, yeah. There's some really cool technology in this movie, too. But, yeah, I mean, it's just a cool summer flick. It was something really cool to see in between all the big blockbusters like Solo, Deadpool, Infinity War, Ant-Man. It was something that came in the middle that I was just like, wow, this was a nice refreshing movie.
Yeah.
It wasn't trying to be big. It wasn't trying to have this big extravaganza. We got to stop the villain from destroying the world or anything like that. No. It was just more down to earth, more focused. This guy just wants to get revenge. We're set in a cool world in the future. It was just so cool. It was just so cool. But anyway, now for my number one, which got a little bit of controversy when it first came out due to some themes about the film and also how the film ends. But I love this movie, and it's probably gonna be my top 3 at the end of this year. But my number one is.
There's never been a black cop in this city. We think you might be the man to open things up around here.
Hello, this is Ron Stallworth calling. Who am I speaking with?
This is David Duke.
Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. That David Duke?
God, last time I checked.
Before this goes anywhere else in that trailer, let me just cut it off right there. But if you don't know what that is, that was Black Klansman, which was directed by Spike Lee. And oh my God, Spike Lee's been on, to me, not the lowest in his career, but like he hasn't really had a big hit in a while. Mm-hmm. This was such a big hit.
I'm so mad I didn't see that movie.
You didn't get to see it?
I wanted to really bad. I didn't get out that much.
Okay.
Is the thing.
The thing is that I thought this film came out at the perfect time. I mean, it covered a lot of things. And the thing I like most about this movie, and it was brave for it to do, is that a lot of, people are talking negatively about cops nowadays or, all positively. This film kind of stayed in the gray of that, where it did actually say something that, I feel like should be said sometimes. And I'm not going to try to get too political here, but the film brought up there are good cops. and there are bad cops.
Yes.
And it did a great job at showing that, and I applaud someone like Stan Lee. Not Stan Lee. I'm sorry.
Spike Lee.
Spike Lee. Wrong Lee. I applaud someone like Spike Lee, who's a very big activist. Very big activist for saying something like that. And it's just
smart guy.
Yeah, and he did a fantastic job with this movie's direction, its script writing. I mean, it's funny in the right places, and it's very dramatic and gets your blood boiling in the right places as well. It makes you go, oh my God. I mean, there is a moment that it basically shows something that's happening today was happening in the past, and it just mic drops it right in front of you, and you're just like, oh my God. I think this movie probably has the biggest mic drop moment of the year. But other than some political stuff that got the movie in trouble, this movie has some of my favorite performances this year. John David Washington, who is the son of Denzel Washington, I thought did a fantastic job playing Ron Stallsworth, who was a real cop that infiltrated the Ku Klux Klan.
I heard the NPR story about it. It was a very interesting.
Dude, this movie, is just fascinating watching it play out. And then Adam Driver, to me, who is becoming one of my favorite new actors.
He's incredible.
In Star Wars, I want to do a Last Jedi discussion eventually on this podcast.
I would love to.
I can't wait.
But one thing about Last Jedi that I love is Adam Driver's performance as Kylo Ren in that movie. And just ever since then, I've been looking more into more of his career, and the guy is just fantastic, and he's great in this. There's a scene where Adam Driver's character is Jewish in this movie, and there's a scene where Adam Driver talks about how, I never really considered the hate that my people get until I, was helping you in this, case and everything. And it's a great scene of him, realizing, oh, my God, this is still out there in the world, this racism and everything. But then you look at John David Washington, Ron Stallsworth character, who basically is just sitting there the whole time, just looking down I kind of deal with that every day. And it's such a powerful scene, and it's just beautifully executed and directed. It was man, this was the best thing to end the summer with for me. Anyway, enough about me. That was my top 3. To recap, number 3 was Mission Impossible, number 2 was Upgrade, and number 1 was Black Klansman. We're now going to move on to Matthew, who has 3 movies himself. His top 3, which we're going to start off with this one right here. Number 3 for Matthew Lundeen.
I wonder what you'd call this kind of relationship. It's not like we have any camaraderie. There isn't really a bond here at all. Everyone just does what they want to do. They come back whenever they feel like it. And then they take off again.
You know what the world is like.
That was Cowboy Bebop, the movie. So the movie initially came out in the early 2000s. It actually was released in U.S. theaters. I don't know if it was a limited release, because what I'm used to nowadays with animated films from Japan when they come out here is that they get sort of a limited release. I'll have to drive out a bit farther of a ways to see it in theaters. I love this movie. It's just, to me, being a follow-up to an established classic of a series like Cowboy Bebop, a series that for many people is one of the best animated shows ever made. I think that it managed to succeed in following up the series while also kind of standing alone in a lot of ways. I think that this is a film, because of the standalone nature of the episodes in the series. You can watch a random episode of Bebop, and it's its own contained story. The Bebop movie is very much the same way, and I think that it's sort of similar to how you could watch the first Avengers movie, and you could, without having seen a lot of the other films, you could understand who these characters are. And they have their own arcs.
That's what the first Avenger film did great, because they knew a lot of people only saw Iron Man.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And because of that reason, I think that Cowboy Bebop, which the full title was Knockin' on Heaven's Door, which is an incredible reference to which it's actually funny because a lot of the episodes of the series were named after famous songs. So there was an episode called Toys in the Attic. There was an episode called Honky Tonk Woman. They had a bunch of episode titles that were called sessions, because there was this big musical theme to the whole to the show's style, since a lot of it was jazz and rock and folksy blues and stuff. The movie itself is about its 4 main characters, technically 5 if you count the dog, which I do, and they're going around being bounty hunters in space, and they end up getting kind of wrapped up in this investigation looking for this terrorist, trying to find the bounty. And it's just a really fun film, and one that I think if you haven't seen the series, it's the perfect way to get into it, because the studio that worked on the film was Studio Bones, and Bones is, in my opinion, the best animation studio in the world. They have continuously made some of the most beautiful, most incredible series and films that I have had the pleasure of watching, and I think that this film finds a way to encapsulate most of, if not all, but most of the elements that made the series so great. Highly recommend it. If you've never even watched the series, I think it's a great way to, if you like it, you can, get into the show.
All right. Well, let's get on to Matthew's number 2, which I'm sure all of you will recognize this from the amount of views this thing has on YouTube. You can probably recognize the audio from this, but number 2 for Matthew Lundeen.
There was an idea to bring together a group of remarkable people. To see if we could become something more.
So when they needed us, we could fight the battles
that they never could.
Now, all right, for those of you who don't know, that was Avengers Infinity War, obviously. But I just want to say this real quick, Matthew, without going too much into detail, because I do want to talk about this film in the future before the 4th film comes out. So you could save some of those feelings you have for when we do like a re-discussion of it, a re-review of it. But right now, man, why was this number 2 for you?
The reason this was number 2, and I struggled because there were a lot of very interesting films that I saw this year, and specifically this summer. Infinity War, at first, when I saw it, I didn't know how to feel about it. I knew that when it ended and I saw how it ended, I thought there was a lot of emotions, most of them positive, because I was just so amazed with how they had constructed it. But it felt like, because there were so many characters, I was worried that there was this sense of it felt off. And I think looking back on it, the reason it felt that way was because there's really never been a movie like this before.
You are very right about that. The only thing we have is the first Avenger movie?
The first 2 Avengers.
First two Avenger movies, and then Justice League.
Yeah, and then it just, so much of this film was so different, and I think that's why there was that feeling, those initial feelings. But looking back on it, it does so many things brilliantly, and in terms of fight choreography, in terms of the thought put into it. How the Russo brothers,
they did an excellent job for what they were given. They did a fantastic
geniuses.
Job.
And I think that this is the type of movie that this is one of the things that makes any of the films I'm less happy about in the MCU, it makes it all worth it, because the Russo brothers are geniuses. They are masters, and they have constructed a film which is it's really a film about Thanos. And I think that's when I realized that's when I realized that I really loved this film, because of that, and because it just...
There's so much to talk about with this movie. I mean, when I was on a previous podcast, we spent like an hour and 15 minutes talking about it. I mean, there was just so much going on in this movie that, like, to talk about it, like, you have to have, like, and that's why I want to do it. I want to have a rediscussion to get ready, because I mean, just watching this trailer, I get goosebumps already, because it's like, man, we're almost about to see the 4th film, like a trailer or anything. We're about to see that, and then the film will be out. But
have they talked about when another trailer is coming out?
I'm assuming they're just gonna do the same thing as last year and drop one in November, and then drop one last one like 3 months before it comes out.
I'm really excited.
I know,
and mainly because, and some people might guffaw at this, but ever since I walked out of the first Avengers film, Hawkeye has been my favorite Avenger, just because I thought that he was really cool in the first one, and then that only got that. One of my reasons for liking Avengers 2 more than the first Avengers is because they gave Hawkeye more screen time and more development, and knowing that he's going to have a larger role to play in the final like Avengers film, well, maybe not final, but I mean the next one, it just makes me so happy. And given how they already had a film of this size focusing on so many characters without really even having to worry too much, because it is a film about Thanos. And Josh Brolin should have been nominated for an Oscar for this performance.
Well, maybe he might. I don't know.
Maybe he might. I don't know. I'm just saying, the CG has gotten so good.
They're at this point in Hollywood, they're really, if they want to add in a category rather than like the most popular film category at the Oscars, there should be like CGI actor category, because with Andy Serkis as Caesar and now Josh Brolin is this, there's a lot more actors doing this. Like there should be a category.
Absolutely.
But you got any last things you want?
I don't have it. I mean, really, I'm kind of just preaching to the choir at this point. This film is amazing, and that's why it was second place. It wasn't quite as I mean, Bebop probably would have been higher just because I'm a fanboy, but I couldn't deny that Avengers: Infinity War just really had it going.
One last thing I'll just add in, and we'll get into your number one, is that I mean, to me, it was a movie that I've never seen a fan base all just go, "We loved it." Like, it was just a collective. I mean, other than the first Avenger movie, it was just such. Everybody I talked to just was like, "I loved it. It was fantastic." It was an event for them. I mean, like, I went to go see this at midnight with my friends, and we bought a whole row of seats because there was that many of us going.
The only people I've talked to that don't like Infinity War, it was one person, and it was only because they were forced to watch all of the Marvel movies and then this one, and they're like, "Yeah, I just don't like superhero movies, but my boyfriend doesn't understand that I don't." So like, that is literally the only person I met who like disliked it actively.
I won't go on to this too much, but it's weird because like the MCU movies I've noticed have attracted a large female crowd, and I think that's maybe because hot dudes. I don't know, but I mean,
I mean, considering that every single male protagonist of any of the MCU films has at some point been shirtless. I don't know about Benedict Cumberbatch in
He'll get his time. He'll get his time.
Hospital gown counts.
But I mean, it's just a large thing. Like I said, it was an event. I mean, holy crap. Anyways, number one for Matthew. Might sound familiar.
You had a terrible choice to make in Berlin. One life over millions. And now the world is at risk.
This is the CIA's mission. If he had held on to the plutonium, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
His team would be dead.
Yes, they would. That's the job.
Woo! That trailer gives me goosebumps too.
Yes, I just, if I had to do another category, I'd say best trailer of 2018.
Yeah.
Well, actually, that trailer may have come in 2017. Whatever, doesn't matter. It was an amazing trailer, amazing film. I'm not going to go on too long with this because you already talked about it at length. But yeah, Mission Impossible Fallout. It's one of those films where it's always impresses me when a film can come to terms with a lot of the things in its films that have been repeated many times, and yet still manage to excite me to no end with a story that felt a lot more emotionally engaging than others. There are a lot of these spy films, I like them because it's like, I like the twists, I like the turns, I like the cat and mouse game that they play. This film did some of that again, but was impressive for the emotion put into it. And just like the effort of the actors, because Tom Cruise is an incredible actor, regardless of your opinions of him as an individual or his social or his personal life. He's an amazing actor.
Tip of the hat to him, man. If he does his own stunt work and the stuff he does in this film, it's like, dude, you know what, man? You're a master of your craft.
So yeah, this film really won me over. I'm an audiovisual guy. I take a lot of stuff sometimes more seriously than quality of writing and storytelling. But this did it all. It really did have. It did things incredibly. So yeah, that's all I really got to say.
All right. That was Matthew's top 3. You want to give a recap real quick, and then we'll move on to Chris?
Yes, the recap. It was number 3, the Cowboy Bebop movie, produced by Studio Bones and directed by Shinichiro Watanabe. Number 2, Avengers: Infinity War, directed by the Russo brothers. And number 1, Mission Impossible Fallout, directed by I don't remember his name.
No,
But he's an incredible director.
He's worked with Tom Cruise a lot.
I'll mention it later. I'll Google him, but you can go on.
Do you have any honorable mentions real quick?
Oh, I do have.
You want to explain why?
I'm not going to explain why. I will say Maquia, When the Promised Flower Blooms. It was an animated limited release film. Look it up. Maquia, Maquia. Very powerful movie about motherhood. And that's really all I have to say. Oh, Solo. I don't know why I wasn't more excited for this. Actually, I know exactly why I wasn't excited for it. Watched it, loved it. I thought it was good.
Nice. All right. I guess I should preface my whole list. I don't have a whole lot to say on all these movies. Like, I don't actually know why I love these movies so much or why they're in my top 3 so far. I should also say I didn't see a whole lot of movies at the beginning of the year, and it wasn't until like this past month that I made it not a chore, but a duty to go out and actually watch movies, which is weird because I think out of the 3 of us, I am the one who is possibly the most interested in film as like an art form, as a medium, and wants to like pursue it. I don't know about you two, but like I actively want to be a writer.
I wanted
director.
to pursue it, but somebody broke my dreams.
Oh my God. Jesus. Okay. Well, yeah, no, my top 3, I don't have as like I guess the film guy, I don't have a whole lot to add or to say about them other than like they were cathartic experiences. So yeah, my number 3 is from a person who is new to the directing scene. I should also say these are all pretty big budget films, I think, which I mean, who cares?
So are ours.
Yeah, I mean, who cares? I don't care. These were nice films. I like them. Number 3.
You were probably like, well, there was no dialogue in that clip. Well,
there's a reason.
There's not many dialogue. There's not that much dialogue in this movie.
That's
Chris.
That is A Quiet Place, directed by John Krasinski. There was a whole lot of interviews out with him. You probably know him best from being Jim in The Office, which is a great television show. I know people watch it as a religion. I have yet to do that myself. I've seen episodes. I know the show, but like I don't watch it as actively as most people do. This was his first project as a writer and director, I believe.
Second,
okay. My mistake. But he did a great job here. I can only think really of more critiques than praises, I guess. The third act kind of turns into Signs, an M. Night Shyamalan movie, which I love. But there are great character moments with Krasinski, or I forget his character's name at this rate, but of him talking to his children, signing to them, taking them to the waterfall, these monsters being metaphors for what he'll do to protect his family. It's not a terribly complex story, but that's fine. I mean, not every story has to be this multifaceted framework, Pulp Fiction, mind you, but I don't know. It's just really a nice experience. It's a movie I can stomach because I can't really watch horror movies, and it's less of a horror movie and more of just like a thriller at points. So I appreciated that as a guy who doesn't take can't really sit through horror movies that often. I did appreciate A Quiet Place. So I mentioned I won't have much to say about all of these. And that's as much as I can really say about A Quiet Place. It was just a really great experience, I think.
I think as a film that doesn't have much dialogue and relied on subtitles for like 95% of the movie, to have the
great visual storytelling,
to have the reception it got was amazing to see, because I was wondering how good this was going to do at the box office. For it to reach over 100 million, I was like, nice, it deserves it.
No. So yeah, number 2, we've already talked extensively about it, but here it is again, number 2.
The entire time I knew him, he only ever had one goal. To wipe out half the universe. If he gets all the Infinity Stones, he can do it with the snap of his fingers. Just like that.
Tell me his name again.
Thanos.
All right, so I don't think it's Infinity War gets a lot of praise. That's my number 2 spot. I don't think it's entirely game-changing per se. I'm not about to sit here and call Infinity War overrated, but I am saying that it is a really hard animal to dissect, I'd say. It's hard to critique because I don't have many problems with it. It's very memorable. I like the way each character interacts. Like this huge ensemble cast gets along fantastic in areas. It's really this interesting look at it. People call it an event. I guess that's an accurate way of describing it, but it's definitely an interesting take on the superhero genre where it's a lot of the focus is more on the villain and developing your villain as not really maybe you can say a protagonist, but really humanizing him and rationalizing this mad titan, this Thanos. It's really cool. My only little critique, I'd guess, is looking at it. I have watched all the MCU films, and I have trouble removing myself and looking at things from other perspectives sometimes. So I can't critique this as its own standalone property instead of as a piece of a franchise, because I don't know how someone watching this would feel.
I can attest to that. My mom for Mother's Day wanted to go see this because of how popular it was. She's only seen a couple Marvel movies. She's seen Thor 1, Spider-Man Homecoming, and both Guardian movies. Oh, and Ant-Man.
Okay, those
are... And she saw this. She liked it, but the entire time she's like, who's that? When they showed Thor, she was like, is that a bad guy? I'm like, Mom, that's Thor. Oh, he looks different. I'm like, yeah, he's been through some stuff.
That is my only thing, is that my huge thing is it's definitely part of a chapter in a story, I'd say. So with that context, is a normal audience member who is already not engaged with Marvel, are they going to go back and watch the 18 other movies to catch up on the grand scheme of things for Infinity War? I'm not knocking the film for that. I still think what they've managed to pull off is fantastic, and that shouldn't be understated, but it's worth throwing out there. But as much as I kind of said bad things about it, I guess my take is that, it's the second best blockbuster I've seen this year.
Definitely.
And I definitely enjoyed watching Infinity War. My number 1 is another superhero movie, not a Marvel title, but I don't know how else to preface this other than it already plays a huge part of my childhood. So here's my number 1 pick.
The screenslaver interrupts this program for an important announcement.
Suit up. It might get weird.
I'll be there ASAP.
Where you going ASAP? You better be back ASAP.
Yeah, so Incredibles 2. I don't have a lot to say other than I freaking love Incredibles, man. That is my favorite Pixar movie. I don't know if this one, even all these months after, I can't go ahead and say this was better than Incredibles, the first Incredibles, because I just feel dirty saying that for some reason.
Pulaski said it.
You think Steve said it?
Steve said it. He said this one was way better than the first one.
I think my main reason why I guess I disagree is that it feels like there's less at stake with Incredibles 2. It feels not safe or anything, but in the first Incredibles, it is a kids movie, so I don't think the main characters are going to die or anything, but it genuinely felt like there was a lot at stake. This family drama really was tearing them apart at the seams, where in this one it's less at stake, but I think it's because it's a different kind of conflict. It's more of a conflict of a shift in power in a family dynamic, which is definitely really cool and something you don't really see in a kids movie. And it's you say it's a kids movie, but there are mature elements to it as well. There's more cursing than other Pixar or Disney movies.
There's a backstory to a character that lost his father, and that backstory is dark.
I
was like, whoa.
That was actually what I was going to ask, because one of my favorite things looking back at the original Incredibles was just how the film kind of had this really interesting drama
of
to it.
Comic book campiness, but also dark reality.
Yeah, some the scene. When it's been ages since the film came out, so I'm not really worried about too much about spoilers. But the plane scene, when when Elastigirl is when she's trying to dodge all those missiles and stuff like that, and just the tension in that scene was just so great.
Palpable.
It's amazing. And so hearing that there is elements of that same type of occasional dark tone here that just is really I think was really necessary
Yeah.
for making the film as emotionally resonant as it could be.
This is definitely a quality Pixar film. I've heard one person in particular call it like a cash grab, and I just find that annoying because not all franchise or superhero movies are cash grabs. Yeah, they make money. Yes, this is an industry, but there was care involved with this. Brad Bird is a great writer and director.
Totally was. Brad Bird made the second best Mission Impossible movie, Ghost Protocol.
Yeah. So
Speaking of which, Christopher McQuarrie was the director of Mission Impossible.
Yeah. So I definitely say that Incredibles 2 is up there on my favorite Pixar films, and Brad Bird is already like a veteran with Pixar with Incredibles and Ratatouille. Even not Incredibles, in the animated film with Iron Giant, he definitely has this retro 50s nostalgia that he puts into most of his films. You can see that obviously in Incredibles, and I love that aesthetic. I love the refinement and like almost the exaggeration on cartooniness in Incredibles 2, which is a positive and a negative because it feeds into like, it feels like there's less at stake, but on top of it, it's like, well, it's a superhero movie, so it makes sense.
I saw a lot of people saying, oh, this was such a cliche plot and everything. The thing was is that I could see that, but seeing these characters deal with the situation that we were given is what gave it a refreshing feel to it.
Yes, that is definitely the part that mattered the most.
Two, I mean, it's a beautiful movie. Pixar has been making some really good looking animation recently, and just the scenes of Elastigirl flying through the city at night, like, grappling on the buildings and everything.
Elastigirl is...
And that action scene with this train sequence, it was like you're literally watching a comic book.
There are scenes like that where it's definitely like, okay, there is that Incredibles 1 plain scene tension here.
The only thing that I did like this a lot, and in fact you could throw it in my honorable mentions. What just held it back for me is that like there were just some small things, but the biggest thing was, man, that villain was disappointing but it's hard when you're coming off of Syndrome. Syndrome, who was a fantastic villain.
I will say I've heard mixed things about there's a screenslaver monologue that's like the main villain. It's very reminiscent of Watchmen for me, and that is like the dark reality part that I liked a lot, even if it's like kind of inconsistent, even if it like doesn't play into a huge bigger picture. That contrast with like Elastigirl being like this superstar, all of a sudden like it's like this harsh reality check. Oh my gosh, I'm not gonna read that. That harsh reality check is something that I love. That's a very Incredibles thing where like, yeah, it's this like superhero family, but also like, oh my god, there's like actual like horrible things happening in the world.
Yeah.
I enjoy that a lot.
The family dynamic is still a plus in that movie.
Oh yes, definitely.
But anyway,
and that's why I love Incredibles, and Incredibles 2 is my top pick for the year.
Go ahead, give a recap, and then if you have any honorable mentions, throw them in there as well.
Okay, so my recap: A Quiet Place, directed by John Krasinski; Infinity War, directed by the Russo brothers; and Incredibles 2, written and directed by Brad Bird. My honorable mentions, let me go ahead. I think I'll only throw in one because my list is like of 9 movies, and I'm gonna dip into my bottom 3 if I go any further. But honorable mention: Deadpool 2.
Okay,
a few good laughs. I liked it a lot.
Yeah,
I'll say that much.
All right. Well, we talked about the good. Let's get into the bad. Let's get into the turds of the wind that we saw over the summer.
Exactly.
I'm gonna start off with my number 3, which was a chore to sit through and a pain to sit through. My number 3 is.
I don't regret staying at home and being your mom, but I regret not getting my degree.
That's why somebody's mom just enrolled in college. I'm referring to myself.
I'll see you around the quad.
Nobody says that, Mom. Well, bring it back. Get ready for the
wildlife. No. Let's get ready for a crappy film. Or like, let's just get ready for that. Actually,
see you around the quad. I feel like Eric Andre said that. Hit the quad, bro.
Yeah, it's Life of the Party starring Melissa McCarthy. Now, here's the thing.
Didn't hear about it at all.
You didn't know this existed?
I saw one poster, and that's all I knew about.
I saw a poster too. I think I just didn't care.
This felt like every other Melissa McCarthy movie that isn't Spy or The Heat, where it's just her acting like an idiot, fumbling around, falling down, and that's it. That's the whole movie. Oh, and then a big celebrity cameo at the end. It just feels like I'm.
Who was the celebrity cameo since
Christina Aguilera?
That's disappointing. Come on.
And you want to know how it fits into the plot?
How does it fit into the plot?
So they're throwing a party at the end of the year at their sorority because Melissa McCarthy needs to pay off her tuition or she can't graduate. Which, I mean, I guess college loans don't exist, but so their plan is to throw a party and say Christina Aguilera is going to be there because one person in the sorority knows Christina Aguilera because it's her cousin. And a bunch of people show up, and they're like, "Where's Christina?" And they're just like, "Where is she?" And then she just shows up and sings.
You know, I here's the thing. I like Christina Aguilera. I'm just saying, like, when you have like a film like this, and you're like, we need to make sure this film is relevant now.
Yeah.
Why Aguilera?
I don't know. I don't know. And the thing is
I
like,
feel like a lot of those cameos are just whoever you can get. Really.
Tons of people are asking me, "Hey, what's the worst comedy you've seen this year?" And a lot of people thought I was going to say that Amy Schumer one. It's like, no, I actually thought that was just, like that was just okay. This was just garbage. I was just sitting there angry. I sat and like the minute it ended, I never got up and ran down the theater steps so fast to get out of the theater. I wanted to escape from this movie. I never wanted to see it again. And just watching this trailer,
yeah,
God.
And it's disappointing because she's funny.
She can be funny. She's great when she's on SNL. She was hilarious in Spy, and there's a few other movies that
and Bridesmaids
and Bridesmaids as well. There's a few other movies that it's a must. Okay, Happy Time Murders. I actually thought she was decent in that.
That was my reaction to the movie. Sorry,
I thought she was decent in that because she didn't play her typical self where it's like, look at me, I'm fat and falling over.
Yeah, no, there was like an actual character to that.
Yeah, like, and as a dramatic actor, she's great. Saint Vincent, and she's got a dramatic role coming up where she's a writer that's stealing poems from other writers that were like lost. Mm-hmm. It's called Can You Forever Forgive Me? It looks great, and she's like not playing herself. And once again, it's like McCarthy can be a great dramatic actress, and McCarthy can be funny, but she's given the same repetition over and over again because it's typical Hollywood just being like, do what everybody knows you for. Yeah. It's the same thing with Kevin Hart. It's the same thing with Will Ferrell. It's the same thing with all those. And this is just, to me, this is her lowest of low.
Although Will Ferrell, I'd say, has a far better success rate.
Oh, yeah.
With that type of stuff.
He does.
Land of the Lost is like a family tradition for me and my family to watch.
Every once in a while, he gets a dud, but every other film, it's like,
and
you get a Ricky Bobby and you get an Anchorman and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But,
and Daddy's Home, that's a great film.
Not Daddy's Home 2.
Not Daddy's Home 2.
I have not seen Daddy's Home.
Not Daddy's Home 2. Let me tell you that right now. Anyway, my number 2 actually came out the same day in the same weekend. So when I had to go review these movies,
oh boy,
it was a back-to-back feature.
It was a double whammy.
Oh, man.
You are a woman, alone at the mercy of strangers.
What do you want?
We want something in the house.
I will do anything to protect my kids.
Do exactly what I say, or you and your kids will not survive this night. Do you understand?
Yo! She's gone. Find her.
Okay, if you don't know what that is Breaking In, starring Gabrielle Union, directed by, I don't know, this guy just needed to get his name out there, I think, with just something. But the best way I can describe this movie is lazy and boring. It is just one of the most laziest films I've seen recently. You don't feel any tension. The action is just mediocre to very poor at best. Mediocre at best to very poor. I mean, that just feels like.
Is it just like?
It's just that's how it feels. And the thing is, it's like they released both these movies the same weekend. Both of them were Mother's Day weekend movies.
That is weird.
It was like, oh, we're gonna get the mothers to go in and see this woman save her children, and it's just like there was nothing really inspiring about this. There was nothing really powerful about this. Gabrielle Union does a great job in her performance, but I mean, I didn't walk out of the film like when I walked out of Wonder Woman and I turned to my ex and I went like, how did you like that? And she was like, I want to take on the world right now. And it's just like walking out of this, and then I was just like, I want to ask her, but like she's my ex, so like that would be weird. But I just was like, I really wish I saw this with her because I want to turn to her and be like, did that make you feel powerful? Because even at the end of Wonder Woman, I was like, you know what? I'm not even a woman, and that made me go, damn, that was awesome. But then walking out of this, I was like, damn, that sucked.
Yeah.
And it's just
that's a shame.
Because
I get what they were trying to do. They were like, we want to make a movie. We want to make it have like an action. Well, I guess this is more of a thriller, I suppose.
Yeah, it's a thriller.
Yeah, but we're like, we want a thriller that's gonna be like kind of like a girl power. There was a film with Halle Berry where it's like her kidnapped or something
Yeah,
like that.
her son gets kidnapped. Yeah,
That was in production hell for some reason.
Yeah, that took like years to come out.
Yeah, apparently that was in production hell. And see, I look at a film like that and I'd be like, I get what they're trying to do, but if I was a woman and particularly a mother, I would look at that film and be like, that's like that. No, I don't want to. That film would have me like just nervous the whole time.
Yeah.
I'm a gay guy. When I heard they were making a film about Stonewall, I was like, oh, I can't watch that. I'm gonna be just nervous the whole time. Like, oh God, who's gonna get lynched? And I don't want to worry about that.
I don't.
I was like, you got anything to add, Chris?
I mean, like, I didn't know this movie existed until right now, so that's
that
my
tells you
takeaway.
something. That tells you something. I will say this is how lazy the movie is that, I mean, the villains in this movie, the guys that break in, are some of the biggest bumbling idiots I've ever seen in the movie. Like, I mean,
and they're clearly like trying to portray themselves as like some like Dark Knight Joker.
No, they're just like, you're a woman. What is a woman gonna do? And that's basically the dialogue throughout most of the movie.
Do they have some grand scheme behind it, or
they just want what's in a safe?
Oh,
but like one of them gets ran over by a car, and like you hear it go da-doom, da-doom, and then you're like, oh, he dead. And then literally at the end of the movie, when like a villain is like, I just wanted what's in your safe, I'm gonna leave now, and he turns around and leaves. I know this is a spoiler, but like really don't even waste your time with this movie, please. When the villain turns around, he's like, I'm gonna leave with the money. The villain that got ran over comes around with just a tiny little scratch on his forehead and stabs that villain and takes the money, and he's like, I don't care, I want the money and I'm gonna kill your kids. And then he chases them around the house, and that's the finale of the movie.
Yeah, oh God.
Anyway, number one.
Yeah.
Number one, which I gotta say, man, I was disappointed that this was this bad, but I'll go into it more once you hear what it is.
So, what are you dating, like an accountant now, or
Owen,
ventriloquist?
stop it.
You love a dummy.
This is not why we're here.
You can blame me, try to shame me.
I know why we're here.
To make a lot of money. Oh man, they tried, but they couldn't make as much money as they did with that first one, and I was so happy they didn't.
There's only one thing I really have to say about this movie.
I hated it.
I hated it so much.
Here's the thing too, is that like, I look at this movie, it's like, would I watch this over Breaking In or The Life of the Party? And it's like, probably, but like what makes me hate it more is that, man, you have potential here. There is so much potential in this movie.
You have a whole franchise of like great movies ahead of you and like a great premise, and like this is what you do with it.
And it was just so bad. I've never seen a movie, and I said this in the review with me and Chris, I've never seen a movie do this before, where it's like the first 40 minutes, it was okay. I was like, all right, where are you going with this? And then it had this big, amazing action scene with. Oh, this is Jurassic World, by the way. I forgot to mention that.
Look, anybody who's gone to a theater to see a film saw that trailer.
Yeah, that trailer was played every movie.
Of course, I'm talking about the Elton John biopic.
I actually want to start off by saying Infinity. Oh yeah, it's Infinity War because Chris Pratt. But I've never seen like this movie has this big, like, huge action scene. A bunch of dinosaurs are running past them. They're trying to avoid getting run over. Lava spewing, and it's like, whoa, this is actually kind of intense and kind of cool. Seeing every dinosaur in Jurassic Park be shown, and it's like as soon as that action scene ended, and I'm gonna do the exact same thing I did in that review. It's like the director turned around and just went, ta-da! And it's like, well, what do you have left? We have like an hour and 40 minutes. I mean, we can rehash that plot from the first film where they genetically create a dinosaur, and they do that, and it's worse. It is worse, and it gets worse from there. And it was just baffling to sit through. And it's like, I think in our review I gave it a D, just a solid D. Mm-hmm. I went back and I watched it. I'm like, what was wrong with me? This movie sucked.
Oh yeah, no, this I don't know how you mishandle a property so badly. Like, people who dislike new Star Wars, I understand, I guess, a little bit. I'm not in the same boat. I genuinely like new Star Wars. If you feel the same way at all about Jurassic World and Jurassic Park, it's totally warranted, because they totally throw out the premise and like the main thesis basically of Jurassic Park, which is supposed to be like commentary on ethics in like science
of genetically like engineering
genetic
something,
engineering and just science in general, and like a reliance on machines, and they just kind of totally backpedal on the whole thing, and they like look at it more as like a charming thing, or like I don't know what Joe's getting out of his bag. I'm excited for this.
I can't wait to watch this movie myself.
This is what it was like. It was like, hey, you know what? We wrote that down in the first 5 minutes to have this thing. It's right here in this script that you can hear. I'm flipping through. But you know what we're gonna do? We're just gonna throw that away. We're just gonna. I gotta pick those up later. But we're just gonna throw that away because you know what? You people just want to see dinosaurs, and that's what you want to see in Jurassic Park at the end of the day.
That's so frustrating because it's not the point of it's a dinosaur movie, but the dinosaurs
We are
aren't...
5 movies in. You showing me a T-Rex isn't impressive anymore. I'm sorry.
It's that, and it's also that's not even the main point of Jurassic World. I'm getting worked up because like oh man, I hate this movie so much. Jurassic Park, the first one from 1993, is my 4th favorite movie of all time. I have that number ingrained in my head. It's the 4th favorite movie of all time. This is an insult to like everything Michael Crichton wrote. Like, okay, yeah, he was a climate change denier, and that sucks. And like, yeah, screw him. But like, he had a point with Jurassic World, and he was a genius, and I liked it. I read the book, and it was great, and the movie was a great dramatization of that. But this is like so backwards. It forgets all of it.
You gotta save this because this is coming up later. Matthew, we're gonna have you take over. If you can't tell, I didn't like this movie.
Yeah.
To recap the garbage pile, it's Life of the Party, Breaking In, and Jurassic World.
Now hold on. I should preface two things. The first thing. So I haven't seen Jurassic World, Jurassic World: The Lost World 2, as I call it. Jurassic World 2: The Lost World 2. And
I wrote Fallen World because who cares?
And so I didn't see it because I wasn't too enthused with it. The first one just kind of I forgot it after a while. I am now very excited to watch it because you guys are so passionately against it that I kind of feel like...
I wonder if we're actually going to make it seem as bad as it is.
Yeah,
I kind of like that movie.
I'd be very interested to see what I take away from it.
I would love to hear what you think about it.
Before we get to my bottom 3, I should say that I don't think that any of these 3 films are necessarily bad. I don't approach these films with the same vitriol that my cohorts have approached their films. I especially will not get as passionately angry. However, they are in the lower sector because of some serious drawbacks, though I do think that each one of these has something about them, maybe even a bunch of things about them that make them really, really entertaining. So we'll go into the first one right now, which I'm actually excited to talk about. Despite the fact that I would probably out of 10 rate it about maybe a 6 out of 10 in terms of quality.
Number 3 for Matthew is this movie right here.
That was Batman Ninja. That was the opening theme, actually, to Batman Ninja, with music done by Yugo Kanno. Not to be mistaken with Yoko Kanno, who is another very renowned musician for like Japanese anime and stuff. So, Batman Ninja. It's number 3 on my bottom 3 list, but I don't actually hate it. I don't hate it at all. I think that it is a film that missed some opportunities narratively, but I still find myself coming back to it, liking it, because it is probably the best DC animated film to come out in like the last several years, because there have been a lot of just films that felt like they lost their touch from the old days. Like there were a couple years ago, like maybe like 5 years ago and beyond that, there was a time where like DC animated films, like we had stuff like Crisis on Two Earths, and we had Batman Year One, and we had these amazing animated films that were really pushing forward.
Did you see Gaslight?
Gotham by Gaslight? I did not see Gotham by Gaslight.
I thought that one wasn't too good.
Yeah, so the thing that disappointed me with that is that film, and like a lot of DC animated films nowadays, for one thing, they have kind of their own animated universe, their own animated continuity, because ever since they did like the
Justice League Doom.
They
or
did
whatever.
not necessarily that. They did stuff like Justice League War and the Batman films with like Damian Wayne, and they created their own kind of continuity.
Yeah.
So it was like the same Batman, same Superman, all that stuff, and it's continued throughout several of the Justice League films, the Aquaman film, and even like the most recently the animated Death of Superman film, which is already a rehash of another adaptation of that same story. And it's been kind of mixed quality. I just some of them they get some really good fight choreography and really exceptional animation. Other times it feels like they kind of crap the bed in a way. This film though was like you look at the and also here's another thing you can look at. Sometimes you'll look at the covers for these films and they look beautiful, but the actual animation style is so completely different. And that always made me angry, especially with Gotham by Gaslight.
It's like the Venom comic book we got when
Yes.
we left Venom.
God.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, but when you look at the cover of Batman Ninja, and you can actually look it up. The cover art for the box art is beautiful, and it is very symbolic of exactly what the style of the film looks like. It is a mixture of like CG and hand drawn animation that I think is done extremely well. Some of the same reasons why I'm excited for Into the Spider-Verse. Actually, because it looks so great. The staff of this film is it is filled with such incredible people who've worked on such great things. So the music is great throughout this whole film. The screenwriter was Kazuki Nakashima, who has, this probably won't mean anything to people who aren't interested in anime, but he's written shows like Kill la Kill, and he's written OVAs like Re Cutie Honey and Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann. He was the person who basically was writing and scripting all of the movie adaptations, which were really just kind of condensed versions of that series. And the director is he hasn't done too much that I'm familiar with, but I think he did a great job here. Character designs by Takashi Bob Okazaki, who is most known for the character designs on Afro Samurai. So he's done some great stuff. I'll wrap it up by saying that it. Sorry, I get passionate about this type of stuff.
No. Go on.
The story is Batman and like really the whole Bat family and a big rogues gallery get transported through time into Sengoku era Japan, and then because of some time travel mumbo jumbo, Batman ends up showing up 2 years late, and all the Batman villains are now like Sengoku leaders in the Warring States period, and now he's got to fight them. And it's the first two acts are impeccable. The third act, though, it goes so far into the realm of insanity because of an attempt by the creators to sort of show Batman through the eyes of Japan. That in some ways, from a thematics point of view, the film is really impressive, but to some it just misses a lot of opportunities narratively, and to a lot of people who are maybe uninitiated to like anime, it probably won't be like up your alley. And for me, I was disappointed that it didn't go farther into certain thematic hooks. So that's really all I have to say about that.
Number 2 for Matthew. Really loud.
Yes, it was. We'll have to edit that in post. But that was the opening. It was one of the musical tracks from Bungo Stray Dogs' Dead Apple. It was another limited release film over the summer. I put this down here because of one particular reason. Overall, audio, visual, music is incredible. That whole soundtrack I loved, and there are several moments that are just like eye candy. Thing is, earlier I was talking about Cowboy Bebop, the movie, and I was talking about how that film, a lot of anime films, they fall into this trap where because it's a original story in the midst of a series that probably isn't finished, they can't really do anything too drastic to change things up. This film didn't really need to fall into that same trap. But because the whole thing is with the main character had a very interesting arc through the first 2 seasons of the show, in which he kind of went from being this very shy, nervous, like freaked out dude to being kind of a badass and a guy who got superpowers. really cool. This film, though, because the way that it goes, the way that the story goes, it felt like they regressed his character arc to the point where he was like kind of annoying at times. They really made it difficult for me to be like, to be rooting for him, because it felt like I was watching the version of him from season 1, except they found a way to make him more annoying than funny or likable. And which is sad, because at the end of the day, the film felt like it didn't need to exist, which is the biggest tragedy of everything, because there are so many moments where, disregarding certain writing flaws, the film just looks and sounds incredible. And that's the biggest disappointment to me, is that it feels like a film that didn't need to exist. And that's really all she wrote. On to number 1. That was the opening theme to Attack on Titan Season 2, which you're wondering, oh, that's a TV show. Well, they did a recap movie. So I went to see this because they did this little theatrical event where they were going to play a recap movie of Season 2, and then we, in the theater, got to watch the first episode of Season 3 of Attack on Titan, which was awesome. But since that part wasn't really within the confines of a film, I have to judge the film, the recap, on of its own merits. And for me, I tend to think that recap films, regardless of the fact that it was actually done fairly well, I generally don't think that recap movies are something that you should be excited for or watch, because it comes from this mentality.
It's a story you already heard.
It's a story you've already heard, and it comes from this mentality of people is like, well, what if people have forgotten? Well, if they've forgotten, then you can rewatch it. They can rewatch it, and they think that our attention spans are so small that they have to do this recap at all.
When people do stuff like this, it feels like it's more aimed at people who are new to the series. But at that rate, why not just watch the other? And I guess that plays into Infinity War. Like, how do you cram into for somebody that doesn't already know about Avengers? How do you cram in 18 movies worth of knowledge?
And to their credit, they did a fairly good job of capturing most of the important story beats. I think that the only thing that was excluded that I think really was necessary was a certain character's backstory. But other than that, for the length of the film, I think it may have been 2 hours, maybe 2 hours. It did a pretty good job of recapping everything. It's just on the principle that it's a story that's better told through TV. I just didn't think that it was sort of weak. Not as exciting as the parade of vitriol that you guys were expressing with Joe's top bottom 3 list. But generally, for me, the films that I watched, most of them I think had some merit to them. Just for these, there were small elements of either the experience of watching it or just the purpose of that film existing that kind of bogged down my enjoyment of it, which is a shame. But yeah, there's my list.
You want to recap your bottom 3?
My bottom 3 are Batman Ninja, directed by Junpei Miyazaki, Bungo Stray Dogs Dead Apple, directed by I don't even know, and Attack on Titan Roar of Awakening, cool title, but didn't really need to exist. And yeah, there we go.
All right,
Chris, you gonna be good?
I can't promise anything. It's not this one. Yeah, you got it.
Okay. Number 3 for Chris.
I love singing and dancing. Hiya, folks.
And I got to cut it off right there.
Yeah, no, I think that's about. We can't find a clean trailer for this movie, which that speaks to the quality of it. A lot of it's the Happy Time Murders, if you couldn't tell.
Yes, the puppet movie that's basically
the bastard child of all Muppets in general. I'll just go ahead and say, that the comment we just made, how we can't find a trailer because all of them are red band or TV spots that are nonsensical, and that's really what most of the humor in the movie hinges on. Is definitely just crude humor, is cussing, is like, hey, look, these puppets, they look like Muppets, and they curse, and like that's the whole joke of the movie. Admittedly, I saw this with friends, and we had a good time, but like I while I was watching the movie and we were laughing at jokes, I'm like, wow, this is not that funny. It's quite juvenile. I'm only really laughing because my friends are laughing. And I'm not, I didn't put this on the list to be a contrarian to my friends. I mean, it's legitimately just not a great movie. It's a bit too convoluted for its own sake, and I feel like it's trying to think that it's smarter than it actually is. That's like a, I don't know, like Stupid Says What is a joke that gets played up a lot for some reason for like, that's just,
right.
It's just
I forgot
strange.
about that.
Like that's like the last joke of the movie, and it's like, why? That's just my whole critique of the movie. It doesn't really do anything that spectacular. Great puppet work, but the whole
amazing puppeteering.
amazing, like
amazing,
legit, like some fantastic quality, like Muppets.
Matthew, don't laugh, man. Some guy really worked his.
No. I'm just. I mean, yeah, that's good. I mean, I would hope that they get that right at least.
In basically what is a Muppet movie. I think it's directed by Henson's kid.
It is.
But I don't even know his first name. But
can you imagine being Henson and like coming
when
back?
he gets up here, oh, he's in for it.
Yeah, no. This is just a movie that's like, the idea of naughty Muppets has already been played up with like Avenue Q and like basically Robot Chicken, I guess, if you want to throw it in there. But like really Avenue Q, like we already have something like this. So like the joke is kind of stale, and it's another Melissa McCarthy movie, but like it is not, I mean, it's not on the list because Melissa McCarthy's in it. She actually does a pretty good job from what she's given, but it's just pretty lackluster. Yeah, just Happy Time Murders is, it exists, is what I'll say about it.
All right.
My number 2 spot is also not. Yeah, okay.
Arms, and then both of your legs, and then we will eat your face right up your head. You will be this armless, legless, faceless thing, won't you? Rolling down the street like a turd in the wind.
What the hell are you?
We are Venom.
Yeah.
That really says it all, doesn't it?
So you know how I feel about this. We just reviewed it. It's hilariously bad, but like not the Room quality, which is its biggest detractor, is that it didn't go full balls to the wall, campy, and it still took itself too seriously. And it's just like, most of the movies on this list are just, I'd say, just Venom is all I got to say, really. I mean, God, I really wish I had more to say, but I mean, we already fully dissected it just a moment ago. So my number 1 spot, you might have a feel for how I feel about it. You might know what it is, and I am passionate about this one.
What is that thing? They made it.
This is the most dangerous creature that ever walked the earth.
I say we shut this whole thing down.
Should have shut this whole movie down.
Give me a break, all right?
That's really nice.
Yeah, we should have shut this whole thing down. You should have shut this whole thing down when you released Jurassic World, whatever the first one was called. I can't remember. It doesn't matter.
It's just called Jurassic World.
Okay, whatever. So, Jurassic World, Fallen Kingdom is my number 1 spot for worst summer blockbuster. It's probably going to be the worst movie of the year. Once again, probably way worse movies exist this year. Didn't get out that much. Man, oh man, I wish I didn't get out to see this one. Man, I wish this one didn't exist, because I guess I've already said my piece. The first demo we did for Variety Viso when I was on board was with Joe, and we reviewed Jurassic World, and we did a takedown, and I think I was a bit merciful with it, because the more I think about Jurassic World, the angrier I get. And I've already said it, but I feel about Jurassic World how Red Letter Media feels about The Last Jedi, and I don't agree with them, but I full-heartedly share the passion with Jurassic World, because oh my God, this movie is really, really bad. Thank you for giving me my notes back. I don't have any notes to consult at this rate, but hey man, do you like interesting commentary on ethics and science? Hey man, do you like interesting characters that have a lot to say about it? Hey man, do you like groundbreaking CG, like literally things we have never seen before that are bringing dinosaurs to life on screen. Oh, you like that last part? You want to just cling on to that for another 4 movies and make just however more money you need to make? Oh my God, I don't know what else to say other than, as someone who loves Jurassic Park, is married to the idea, to its message, to its commentary, it really misses the mark. And yes, I'm not even saying that as like art and like film as a medium. Just as a movie that stands on its own, it has characters that are just stupid, like seemingly really smart scientists or like CEOs or whatever. They're all just stupid. Everything that happens in the movie happens because somebody isn't thinking for half a second.
Chris, I gotta ask you one thing. If this next movie has an evil CEO scientist that's trying to use the dinosaurs to stop global warming, what will be your reaction?
I don't know, man. I can't take it. I can't just let the book just. Hey, dinosaurs went extinct for a reason. I think the same thing needs to happen with this franchise. Where it's had a good run. No, it hasn't. But like, let's just euthanize it at this point. I don't want to see it anymore. Oh my God.
Ta-da!
That was Variety Viso.
Oh man, I wish I saw more bad movies. That was just me complaining about small technical elements about movies that I didn't even hate.
I mean, you'll get some.
I'll get some eventually.
Hopefully, to give you a preview, hopefully this one next week isn't bad. Hopefully we get a good movie on our hands, so like people don't think we just bash on movies for no reason.
First time at the El Royale?
You have the option to stay in either California or Nevada.
I always wanted to stay in the honeymoon suite, even though I'm not currently on my honeymoon. What are you doing out here?
Can I just say this cast is really awesome?
It's stacked.
It's very.
The one thing I'm looking forward to is just seeing this cast play whatever characters they are.
Yeah.
Like Jeff Bridges as a preacher who's actually a bank robber. That just sounds awesome.
I haven't seen a lot of details about this one, but it's called Bad Times at the El Royale.
Yes.
Correct? Okay. Well, I'm really excited for it. It looks stylistically impressive, so that's something I feel like we're in a drought of right now. So I'm glad to see stuff like that.
Yeah.
The last time that I saw a film that gave me these types of like vibes was like Hateful Eight. It gives off a kind of a Tarantino vibe,
Yeah.
and I'm excited for it because of that.
I was not the biggest fan of Hateful Eight, but
neither was I actually. I was actually a little let down by it.
Yeah, it was kind of slow, but that's a whole other thing. But I see what you mean. There's definitely that vintage style too.
Oh yeah,
yeah. That's definitely something that
hell. Even though I say I'm not the biggest fan, even a bad Tarantino movie is still way
Still
better
pretty
than
good.
than
like,
most films.
Than Jurassic World. Okay.
Okay, we don't have to touch on that, Chris. We're fine. But the guy that's directing this
I'm fine.
The guy that's directing this is Drew Goddard, who directed Cabin in the Woods, which I loved.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Is that okay? Cabin in the Woods, the Joss Whedon one.
The Joss Whedon one, yeah.
Okay, I did like.
I love that one a
one's
lot.
good.
He wrote and directed it. He also wrote the first Cloverfield movie.
Okay.
He wrote The Martian with what's
Matt
it called?
Damon.
Matt Damon, and he wrote all the episodes for Daredevil.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I
all
mean,
of them?
all of them.
Okay,
So
well,
this,
I'm excited.
This guy, to me, he knows how to balance dark characters and dark humor. He knows how to not balance. He just knows how to capture it perfectly.
Oh man, if we get to see Jeff Bridges beat people up in a hallway
with the Bible.
Oh man. But yes, we will be reviewing Bad Times at the El Royale next week. As for our other topic, well, we'll just see what happens that week. If there's any news, I think we'll go back to news. I don't think we have any special topics to cover.
We should cover next week, I guess. But James Gunn.
That's actually something I wanted to bring up tonight if we had time. Obviously, we didn't. But that's definitely an article we'll talk about, or a piece of news we'll talk about. James Gunn being fired from Disney, but now potentially being hired by Warner Brothers for Suicide Squad 2. And he's being quoted it's been quoted that if he were to do it, he's just going to remake the movie, which I think is probably the best decision.
Oh, that's
Isn't that like the biggest twist against Disney for what they did to him?
And there is our modern day Evil Dead 2 remake.
Yep.
That's what I was
There we go.
alluding to.
Anyway,
God.
so
Well,
yes, next week, Bad Times at the El Royale, we'll talk about Mr. Gunn going to Warner Brothers possibly. Maybe that story will develop further by next week. And any other piece of news that comes along the way. For now, though, I'm Joe Viso.
I'm Matthew Lundeen.
I'm Chris Duffy.
We are Variety Viso. Please follow us on SoundCloud, Twitter at Variety Viso for updates, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Variety Viso, for reviews, highlights, and vlogs, which will be coming up very shortly.
Which I'm editing.
Which he's editing. Thank you for sticking around. Hope you had a great time. Long one here, but hey, got you. What a way to end it. Gave you a lot of content. Bye. Hey, it's Joe here. Thank you once again for tuning into another episode of Variety Viso. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Variety Viso. We're going to have a lot of new content coming through there. We're going to try some videos, possibly some skits. We came up with one. We're going to try filming it. We'll see how it goes. But yes, please subscribe to there. There will be highlights from our podcast on there. So if you just want to listen to just the Venom review, for instance, that would be a highlight that will be found on YouTube. Or if you just want to listen to the best of worst of list, that is another highlight that you can see on YouTube. Basically, that's what the YouTube's for. But if you want the content right away, SoundCloud is where you will find it at Variety Viso. And you'll see, if you follow us on Twitter, you'll see updates from us, whether it's something being posted, just a little thing to interact with you guys, whatever it may be. Just go ahead and follow us on there. We'll be expanding the channel more and more as we grow. Thank you once again for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. I know this was a very, very long episode, but if you stuck around to the very end, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And have a great day at the movies, at home with your television, or online with your friends on the games. Thank you for tuning in to Variety Viso.